Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aaron Shack Politics. So starting off at the top of this live episode here of what you may have missed in the news, we're going to run down all the latest articles and video clips and stuff that I've been gathering to share with you guys, and not only share my perspective, but also to ask what yours is. First, the elephant in the room is that I've had carpal tunnel surgery on my right hand, and that's where they go in here and they cut the ligament that is holding these nerves down, sort of like restricting them and causing numbness and like burning pain in my fingers and the back of my hand stuff. And it got pretty bad in the right hand, and it's also in the left hand, so I'm probably going to be in and out of various procedures over the next several weeks. But yeah, I can't really do much editing now as a result, or typing, or gaming, or, much of anything at this point. So I thought we would do what the poll said in the community feed last couple weeks or so. We did a little poll, and a weekly live show was the thing that won the poll. So I'm kind of trying to test the waters and see like what's a good time and the day of the week. And I kind of thought, Friday is kind of the end of the week, sometime around 5 or 6 p.m. Central. Feels like, the kind of time you'd be home from work and, taking a look at your phone at, what news to catch up on for the day or the week or what have you. So as we get started here, let me go ahead and push going live stuff out to the feeds. As you know, you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. You just got to search for Aaron Shack Politics, as well as on TikTok, where I'm actually going to try out some live streams over there as well. So yeah, let's get started here. So first thing off the top here, Elon Musk has done a Nazi-style salute at Donald Trump's inauguration parade here, and let's pull it up right here. Let me go. And forgive me because I'm one-handed at the moment. All right, so here we have Elon Musk. Let's take a look at the salute here.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
And he doubles down. He does it again.
My heart goes out to you.
So his heart goes out to you. And I've seen this all over the internet where, various Republicans will say, yeah, play the whole clip. And I'm like, the whole clip is more damning. Like, he does it again, just to further emphasize it. And I think the key thing, because some people are saying, oh, he has Asperger's, this is part of being on the spectrum, this is autism. And I've gotten a lot of opinions online from people who have autism, and they said, I've never even come close to accidentally doing a Hitler Nazi salute here. And I think there's two key elements. There's hitting the chest, and then there is, of course, doing the salute, stretching your hand out, which I'm not going to do because I don't want it out of context. But I think also Republicans were trying to do sort of a double standard of showing still images of Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, just various figures. And they're sort of reaching out with their hand like this, and they're just kind of, talking to the crowd during a speech and just using gestures, or they're pointing at something, or they're talking about what a bright future is coming, whatever, these type of things. So one way you can do my heart goes out to you is you can do a little heart thing, and you can send it out, blow it like a kiss, okay? So you can do lots of things to sort of push that out there. But Elon very deliberately chose this.
And I just want to say
it's not an
thank
accidental
you
thing here.
for making it happen. Thank you.
Now listen, he does the So, I mean, he's really emphasizing it. Like, he's really putting it out there, okay? So, and then he does it again. So, I mean, it can't be mistaken. You can't write this off. It's really weird to watch people defend Nazis and Hitler-style antics at this point. I want to take a look at a few other things because I do think that there are still people that are still trying to refute this. And let's take a look at, oh my gosh, look at that. It's a German newspaper. Okay. Oh, hang on. We gotta pull up a different, okay, I don't have the source for this. Hang on. Boop. I think we can open it in the web browser. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this right here is a German newspaper, and they literally can't post the Nazi salute because in Germany and Austria, it's illegal to publish. It's illegal to do the salute. I mean, you can face fines, you can face jail time. And so if they know what it is, and it literally says Hitler in the article. I mean, ein Hitler ist ein Hitler. I mean, it's like, dude, come on, guys. Like, you know, if the Germans know what it is, if Holocaust survivors know what it is, if World War II veterans know what it is, and if, you know, the basic average person knows what it is, you know, your right-wing nuts are not fooling anyone, okay? And if you can't go to work and do this salute to your boss, or to go to your child's history teacher and show them the salute and say, yeah, it's not a Nazi salute. And see if they praise you. See if everyone, you know, gives you a round of applause and says, oh, congratulations, you're so correct. It's definitely not a Nazi salute. I mean, I don't think that's what's going to happen. You're probably going to get, you know, a beat down by some people and maybe, you know, get your kid kicked out of school, maybe get fired from your job. Because you know what? The Nazis lost and the Confederates lost. They are losers. They are anti-democracy. They are anti-everything America and Jesus and all the things that we love stand for. So, you know, you want to support the losers, that's your own thing, but you're never going to be welcome in this country for doing so. And it's also important to note that Nick Fuentes, a actual Nazi, pointed out that this was a Hitler Nazi salute, and he was rather happy about it, and he was rather proud of Elon for doing said salute. So there you go. So which one? All right. So let's move along here. I'm going to pull up some other, and excuse me as I rather slowly navigate around here. I am one-armed at this point. So another thing that is really interesting is that Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield has once again been community noted here. And I'm going to pull up a picture of the tweet because, you know, that has since changed. Hang on. Let's full screen it. So U.S. UN Ambassador got a community note for not knowing what diplomacy means again. And she says, the ceasefire and hostage deal POTUS announced is the product of intensive American diplomacy. And, of course, I'm going to go to the full tweet, but I wanted you to see that readers added context. Linda voted against several ceasefires. So Asal Raj, she actually screenshot that just in case things change. But this is the same tweet. And obviously it's changed because Linda Thomas Greenfield is no longer the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations until a new one fills her spot. So she says it will halt the fighting in Gaza, help Palestinians begin to recover and rebuild, and reunite hostages with their loved ones. After so much heartbreak, it also offers Israelis and Palestinians alike a path to begin healing and to a future free of Hamas. I call on the UN Security Council and world to unite in supporting its immediate and full implementation. Then, of course, you have a statement from Joe Biden here. And Joe Biden says that he was planning this back in May. And he says it was endorsed unanimously by the UN Security Council, who has, by the way, vetoed ceasefires 4 times or more. And we're just talking about the last year, about the recent ones. We're not even talking about how many times the UN has vetoed various ceasefires beforehand. So, yeah, it's really insane here. And, of course, we have the US-UN link here from the community notes, which will show you all the details about the explanation of how Linda Thomas Greenfield voted, and you can read that yourself. I'm just going to kind of gloss over some of this stuff because it is a lot of information that we have to cover today, but nevertheless, it is very important. One other thing I want to pull up from the inauguration. I think this is absolutely hilarious. Let me oh shoot, hang on. It's opening Photoshop. It always does this when I click images. Okay, so
if Palestinians had spent the last...
Hang on. Technical thing here with opening some things. Okay, here we go. Yeah, these are hilarious. Can we can't make that bigger? Okay, well, that's okay. So if we look right here, we have Zuckerberg checking out Zuckerberg. I don't know. I can't recognize who that guy is, but they are both looking directly at the bosom of Jeff Bezos's fiancée now. And she was apparently wearing a white suit, like a pantsuit, and then she had like a white lace bra underneath, and I guess they were all just really enthralled by it. And one other thing to point out is that, you know, obviously here we have all of the billionaires just lined up, all the oligarchs that will be, you know, controlling and serving America based on their interests are all neatly lined up there. And why is Zuckerberg, he looks like he got caught, man. He looks like a Disney Pixar character, and it's just like his face is like a tube, like, what's the guy that goes, ooh? He's like, he's in the Muppets, you know? He's like the guy with the carrot top, you know? He looks exactly like him. Like, he looks really nervous, and he looks like he's guilty of something. Like the photographer caught this picture, and then Zuckerberg realized it. And he's like, oh, shit. And he's like, wait, is my girlfriend next to me? You know? Like, so, I don't know. It's a little crazy. It's a little funny. But, you know, it's like, guys, like, this is politics. There's always going to be a camera on somebody, and you're always going to be seen. So when you're acting like a creep, you know, it's going to get caught. Okay, so this is next thing we have here. This is Rabbi Yisroel Feldman. He says all land should be returned to the Palestinian people. As Jews, we will be safer under the Palestinian government. He says that Jews can never establish a state on earth. The Torah forbids this, but the Zionists came and declared war on the Torah and God and established an irreligious Zionist state in the Holy Land contrary to the Torah. We all want the land seized by the Zionites to be returned to the Palestinian people. So now I'm going to play the clip of him speaking. So let's take a look here.
The Zionists do not represent the Jewish people and certainly not speak in the name of the Holy Torah. The very name Israel was stolen by them. Authentic Jews around the world demand that the entire land and all rights be restored to the Palestinian people. As Jews, we say that our people will be more safe and our religion more respected under Arabs who believe in God and fear Him than under these heretics, Jews only by birth, who make war against Judaism and humanity. We pray for the speedy and peaceful dismantlement of the State of Israel, and for the time when Palestinians and Jews will once again live side by side in peace and harmony. Ultimately, we pray for the time when we will see the fulfillment of our prayers. May all people join together in one group to do the will of the Almighty wholeheartedly, with the revelation of the glory of the Almighty throughout the universe soon in our days. Amen.
Man, that's a powerful statement. I really feel like I agree with him. I don't think there's any deal where Palestinians get 100% of the way the lands were before the Jews came in and started stealing the land and the British took over and all that. I don't see that as a possibility, but I think we need more voices like this in order to make anything, whether it is this or some other peace deal, seem like a possibility. And I think both peoples have to learn to coexist, but I also think there is the idea that there is stolen land from more than just the Palestinians, also from Syria and Lebanon, where they've encroached on territory, especially most recently, where, it's going to be a little easier said than done. But we do need more voices like this on both sides. I think we need Jews and Palestinians that are willing and able to speak to this type of message and to speak, strongly and from the heart. Okay, so next here, we have a little show here. It says 468 days, Israel's genocide in Gaza by the numbers. We just do that right there. Yeah, there we go. Israel has killed at least 46,707 Palestinians in Gaza, including at least 17,492 children, but experts say that this is likely a vast undercount. Nearly 1.9 million people in Gaza are displaced. Around 80% of them are living in makeshift shelters with little to no protection from the cold. Injured Palestinians are often unable to access treatment because Israel has killed doctors and destroyed healthcare infrastructure. At least 1,068 medics have been killed, and 34 hospitals are out of commission. Over 200 journalists have been killed during Israel's war on Gaza. Over 2 million people in Gaza face food insecurity. The UN said its attempts to bring aid into Gaza are at a breaking point because of Israel's attacks on aid workers. Israel has dropped at least 85,000 tons of explosives on Gaza, creating 42 million tons of rubble. It could take over a decade to clear it all. I think it's also important to note that this is more bombs than we dropped in Afghanistan and Iraq combined. They easily, completely obliterated America's high score of how many bombs they've dropped on countries. So take that into account. Also take into account those 2,000-pound bombs that America was sending, and Biden actually this summer tried to stop America from sending any more because these 2,000-pound bombs are bombs that go far and wide, and they are the kind of bombs that you can't really target. And so they cause a lot of destruction and collateral damage. And Israel was like, actually, that's exactly what we want. So, the fact that they are all for the collateral damage really speaks to the message here. Israel's unrelenting bombardment of Gaza has caused immense environmental damage. In its first 60 days of bombing, Israel released more carbon into the atmosphere than 20 countries. Rebuilding Gaza could take over 20 years, and that's only if Israel stops bombing. And of course, this is one of those 2,000-pound bombs here. Since the start of the war, the U.S. has supplied Israel with over $17.9 billion in military aid. Despite evidence of human rights abuses, the U.S. has continued to send Israel unconditional aid. There you have it. Okay, so let's take a look at our next article here. Oh, we have Bisan from Gaza here, and she is reporting on sort of the proposed ceasefire as it happens here. Let's take a look here. All right, this is Bisan Owda on the ceasefire.
Finally, it's official. After 467 days of killing, finally, it's official. It's a ceasefire. But you need to know that this ceasefire is only a pause for the killing of our people, non-stop for more than 14 months, until until 30 minutes only. The past 30 minutes, we lost people, we lost civilians. Until now, maybe until tomorrow, until after tomorrow. Okay, so we need to know that people at least are happy.
Bisan has been chronicling Israel's genocide on her homeland since October 2023. She warns it's not over yet.
This is not the end of the genocide. This is not the end of the war. Israel's war against Gaza, war against Palestine. This is not what the Palestinian people deserve, and what this is only a ceasefire for the ongoing genocide. It's a two-phase ceasefire. The first one is temporary, and then maybe the second one will lead to the end of the current war again. This is not what leads to our freedom, to the justice, but at least this will pause the killing machine. This will stop temporarily our killing and the killing of my people.
Pause the killing machine. Qatar, Egypt, and U.S. ceasefire. There you go. Israeli cabinet still needs to vote on it, which Netanyahu, we know he delayed that for a little while. But the ceasefire is supposedly in action, but we haven't seen Israel actually stop bombing, which is what we're going to get into as we get further into the show here. Okay. Now, this is another clip of Joe Biden talking about when he and Netanyahu first discussed the ceasefire, and it's really crazy. So we're going to set it up with a little bit here. Asal Rod here in her Twitter post says, this clip is quite revealing. Biden admits they knew Israel was indiscriminately killing civilians from the beginning in violation of international law. Then he confronted Netanyahu, but he made a legitimate argument justifying it. The question is, so he was comparing 21st century war tactics with World War II. Biden responds, he was going after me for saying you can't indiscriminately bomb civilian areas. You can't take out 2, 10, 12, 1,500 people, innocent people, in order to get one bad guy. And he made a legitimate argument. That's what Joe Biden says, okay? So I'm going to full screen the clip here. And let's take a look. So this is Joe Biden on the ceasefire when he and Netanyahu were first discussing it.
When I went to Israel, immediately after their attack by Hamas, 8 days later, whatever it was, and I told them we were going to help. And I said, but Bibi, I said, you can't be carpet bombing these communities. And he said to me, well, you did it. You carpet bomb, not his exact words, but you carpet bomb Berlin. You dropped a nuclear weapon. You killed thousands of innocent people because you had to in order to win a war. I said, but that's why we came up with the UN. New deals by which what we would do relative to civilians and military.
So he was comparing 21st century war tactics, battle tactics, with World War II.
Well, what he was really doing is he was going after me for saying you can't indiscriminately bomb civilian areas, even if the bad guys are there. Even if the bad guys are there, you can't take out 2, 10, 12, 1,500 people.
Yeah. How many children is it okay to kill to get one bad guy?
And he made a legitimate argument. His perspective said, look, these are the guys that kill my people. These are the guys that are all over in these tunnels. Nobody had any idea the miles of tunnels are down there. It's amazing what they built. And they're sometimes 200 feet under the ground. Well, the way to get to them is take out the places where they were under which they got to the tunnels. And so that's the first time I had the discussion about bombing civilian areas was when I went over after the 9/11, after the massacre that occurred.
So on that first trip, 10, 11 days after October 7th, you already raised the issues of how to get to a ceasefire.
Well, not a ceasefire, how to prevent innocent death.
Yes.
And then I pushed really, really hard for more humanitarian aid to go in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's weird watching Biden try to defend this and, you know, Netanyahu basically saying like, well, you bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so, you know, you guys did a lot of indiscriminate killing with your nuclear bombs. And Netanyahu just basically says, hey, I'm doing the same thing, so, you know, and Biden's basically like, well, you got me there. You know, it's like you didn't even have a back and forth with him or try to like say, no, this is different, man. Like this is not the same as what happened in World War II here. So let's see what we can do here. All right, next we have Sam Husseini. He is a member of the press who was at the one of the State Department briefings. I believe it was Blinken's last one. And he says here in his tweet, he says, I barely slept. Here's the best video of what happened yesterday when I confronted Blinken. Also includes thread of related videos of past deceptions from the State Department. It's a really good thread. It's got a lot of details here. So let me pull that up. So I've Photoshopped trying to open those images there. Okay. And we have a special guest here with us. We have Ashley to offer, you know, banter and commentary as well. Okay, so let's... Oh, hello. Coming through loud and clear. Got you. Okay, so we're going to pull up Secretary Blinken, and you're going to get to see Sam Husseini, you know, basically dragged out of there. So let's see. Let's go right here. Right, center that. Okay. Select that. Switches are not working here. Okay. So once again, Secretary Blinken throwing out a member of the press here. Actually, might see if we can full screen it. Yeah, that looks good.
And I want to thank my colleagues, in particular, Jake Sullivan, Bill Burns, Brett McGurk, for their remarkable skill, tireless dedication over these many months of negotiation.
Will you recognize the Geneva Conventions apply to the Palestinians?
And again, I'm happy to address questions when we have a chance. I'm happy to address questions in a moment. Thank you. As we celebrate the return of hostages in Gaza, including Americans, as we look to relief for the people of Gaza, I'm also thinking of all those U.S. citizens who are held wrongfully, who are hostage in countries around the world.
Do you know about the Hannibal Directive? Miller says he doesn't know about the Hannibal Directive. Do you know about the Hannibal Directive?
Again, I'm happy to address questions.
No, I want him to answer my question.
I look forward to answering
He's
questions.
He's going to speak for an hour.
Okay, well, we'll let him speak. We're here for him. Thank you.
He gets to make lots of speeches. Let him answer some questions.
Oh, there's Miller.
Let him answer some questions instead of making another.
AKA the Joker
Would you
here.
like to be escorted out?
Go away.
You don't have the responsibility to tell me where to go. Do you want to be escorted out or not?
I want him to
Thank you.
answer
Okay,
questions.
then let's be quiet.
I'm a
I look forward to
journalist.
answering questions in a minute.
I'm a
Thank
journalist.
you.
I'm not a potted plant.
Everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions in just a minute. Thank you.
Miller has explicitly told me he will not answer my questions. I'm justified in what I'm doing.
I have no greater pleasure in this job than crossing off a list I carry in my pocket,
You don't want to
the
end up
names
on
of
the wrong
those
side
who
of
have been
it.
arbitrarily
You will
detained
live with yourself.
and unfairly held hostage, unjustly held
Oof.
hostage, and bringing them
Bold
home,
words.
returning them to their families, returning them to their loved ones. Finally, I
Get
just
your
wanted
hands
to share
off
this
me.
morning.
Said
Get
you
your
won't
hands
live
off
with
me.
yourself.
Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Answer a damn question.
I look
Do you know
forward to
about the
answering
Hannibal
questions and
Directive?
comments.
Do you know about Israel's nuclear weapons? Everybody from the ICJ. I was sitting here quietly, and now I'm being manhandled by 2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. I'm asking questions after being told by Matt Miller that he will not answer my questions, and so I'm asking
Please,
questions.
sir, respect the process. We'll have an opportunity to take questions in a few minutes.
Wasn't the point of the May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders? You blocked the ICJ orders?
Yeah, everybody's filming it on their
Please, sir,
phones.
respect the process. Thank you.
Oh, respect the process. Respect the process. Well, everybody from Amnesty International, to the ICJ saying that Israel's doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal, why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague?
Why aren't you in The Hague, man?
Why aren't you in The Hague?
Oof. Once again, and he's been grilling Matt Miller and of course Blinken probably for I'd hate to say months. It's probably more accurate to say a year at this point about this, about everything that's happened. And he keeps bringing up that he's addressed these questions with Miller, and Miller says he doesn't know the answer, and he basically never gets back to him or never gives him an opportunity to sit with Blinken and ask these questions and get actual answers to them. It's a really hard watch, and it's really pretty crazy watching, you know, the security here that are, you know, meant to keep this place secure, but also to sort of be seen on the wrong side of history as like, oh yeah, you know, son, I was one of the security guys that threw him out, and they're gonna be like, well, Daddy, why did you do that? And he's gonna be like, well, you know, sometimes, you know, we just gotta be the bad guys and you know, let the war criminal speak from the podium while we, you know, throw out the free press and not allow them any chance to flex some journalistic integrity there. Let's see here. We got our next post. Emma Vigeland is sharing a video here. Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. She says Zionists justified the Gaza genocide by blaming Palestinians for their own slaughter because they elected Hamas nearly 2 decades ago. Israeli public opinion is widely pro-genocide, and Blinken lists that as a reason to support and arm them. And we're going to check out the fabulously stuttering Christine Amanpour, who is sitting down with Anthony Blinken here.
I want to ask you in the broad picture, because I was actually quite, stunned that I saw President-elect Trump retweet a position by a former U.S. official, Jeffrey Sachs, as you know very well. He basically called Benjamin Netanyahu a mean, rude SOB, dark and all the rest of it, and then alluded to the fact that it's him running the show and not USG. USG, the biggest backer of Israel, has not been able to change the dynamic in any appreciable form. What did you think of President Trump? Do you think that's a message that he plans to be harder than maybe you? And also, do you think that the tail has often been wagging the dog? That no matter what you've said about respecting international law, getting humanitarian aid in, all of the rest of it, your clients have ignored you by and large. So I'm wondering whether you think it's time to re-ask the question that former President Trump did during particularly fraught negotiations, when he said, who is the effing superpower here?
So first, I focus less on personalities and more on policies. What is a given country actually doing? Doesn't matter who the individual is, what are they actually doing? Second, I think that what's been misunderstood around the world is ascribing to one individual, or maybe a small group of individuals, the policies that Israel's pursuing that many people don't like. I think this is a reflection of 70, 80, 90% of Israelis following the trauma of October 7th. And ascribing this to any one individual, I think is a mistake and actually leads you to maybe draw the wrong conclusions. This is where the country is. And the policies that the government's pursuing are really a reflection of the country. Even many people who don't like the prime minister. So that's one thing. It's important to understand that. You have a traumatized society, just as you have a traumatized Palestinian society because of the horrors that children, women, and men have had to endure in Gaza, caught in this crossfire of Hamas's initiation that they didn't start and are powerless to stop.
That's actually the only time I've ever seen him acknowledge that there's a difference between Hamas and Palestinian civilians, and that Palestinian civilians are caught in the crossfire of, Israel trying to, just go all-out genocide here as a way of vengeance for the events of October 7th. Even though, October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum, there are things that led up to that. It's the occupation, it's the apartheid, it's, maybe the constant death for over 100 years at this point, that, leads a nation to want to rebel, or at least a group of individuals from said nation to want to rebel. And I think the fact that he says it's the state of the entire country of Israel, and that because a large portion of them want, all-out war, all-out destruction, and that they have, of course, these little observation posts set up all over Israel where you can go and look through the telescopes like you have at the Empire State Building, and you can view the bombings in Gaza live as, just something you do on a Sunday afternoon. You go to the park, you go for a walk, you walk the dog, and then you go over to the telescope and get, watch the bombs fall and watch, innocent men, women, and children die. But, it makes you feel good inside because vengeance makes you smile. But, no ordinary human is like this. I mean, it's sort of a uniquely evil and demonic people that would sort of celebrate any type of death and destruction on this level. And I would even equate it even with how us Americans felt after 9/11. A lot of Americans really wanted blood, and we wanted vengeance. We saw a lot of our innocent people die carelessly, and the way the government and politicians pursued the issue was that they wanted to show that it was the extremist Muslim people, and therefore you were able to paint with a broad brush that, oh, we need to bomb Afghanistan, we need to bomb Iraq, we need to, invade these countries, we need to kill these individuals, whether they're tied to it or not, whether or not we find, weapons of mass destruction or not, whether or not we have actual justifications for this war. This is about vengeance, we're out for blood. We were obviously incredibly racist at the time. I'm not speaking of everyone, but I do think because it was painted with a broad brush that, oh, all Muslim people want death to America, that when a mosque is trying to be built in New York, all of a sudden people see that as like an invasion of terrorist forces, or, when you see a Muslim at the supermarket or what have you, all of a sudden the racism kicks in your brain because you think of 9/11 and you paint everybody with that same brush. And it's just that you can't do that with anything. So it speaks to a lot of the racism our country has had to face and still continually faces as a result of what happened at during 9/11 and even before then. Next, we have some more videos from the Westbank. This is Andre over on TikTok. We've been following some clips here from his documentary on the Westbank about these settlers, Israeli settlers that come and they sort of they will sort of agitate Palestinians in a variety of ways, and they will commit various crimes and stuff. And then the IDF will come and basically defend them as they're doing all this and give them pretty much a free pass to do whatever they want here. Let me center this video once again. Okay, there we go. So that is Andre in the middle. There's a Palestinian on the left, and of course the settlers. You can definitely tell who they are when they start with their various behaviors. But yeah, this one you see him bumping into the Palestinian, and basically that's him trying to like start a fight. And the Palestinians kind of, sorry, let me narrate for a second here. Let me go back. So, in this clip here, the Palestinians kind of know to back off when the settlers approach, because while the Palestinian may defend themselves, if a settler strikes them or shoots them or kills them, they pretty much have full right to go scorched earth, where Palestinians don't have the right to even fight back at all. So if a Palestinian were to fight back, they could, jail time, death, the settler could just say, oh, he fought back, and they could shoot him. The IDF could come and have a completely different opinion and shoot them. So the sort of passive behavior of like, hey, let's back off, let's not make this bigger than it is until he does.
For the past few days, it has been under increased pressure from the settlers. Just now, 2 settlers came and opened the pipe that brings water to the village.
So they opened the pipe there.
One of them then invaded the village and came up right to the houses and started shoving us. The army came, talked to the settler, and to the question of what's going on, he responded,
"They're trying to provoke a fight."
Here. A while later, the settlers...
So he said there are many Arabs here,
allowing us to close the water pipe. Neither the army nor the police did anything about the water pipe. This has been happening for weeks. The settlers regularly come here and open the water pipe in order to damage their villages' access to resources and precipitate the ethnic cleansing of this land.
So, I mean, tell me it's not an apartheid when they're literally sabotaging the water sources for farmers here. And this could be also the water that they use, to bathe and to drink and stuff like that. And they're already getting an inequality of water access, where water going to Palestinian villages costs more than it does in the Israeli villages. There's already a massive inequality here. But then when you have just settlers choosing to spend their afternoon going around sabotaging water pipes and trying to start fights with people, I mean, it just doesn't get more clear that, these people are just the scum of the earth. I mean, there is nothing worse than people that spend their days going around and torturing other people and messing with them, trying to get them off their land so that they can steal said land. And I really appreciate Andre for being out there in the face of danger, where he could potentially get looped into this stuff while reporting. He could just as easily be beaten or killed or jailed as any of the Palestinians can. So this next clip, this is about a nature reserve, which was previously Palestinian farmland, but one of the tricks that the Israeli government will use here is that they will say, oh, this is a nature reserve, you can't live here. And then what will happen is that they'll build settlements, and then, of course, as we can see in the image, the settlements will run their sewer water down into the nature reserve, into the streams, the rivers, whatever it may be, and contaminate the area. So we'll take a look at this clip as it elaborates a little more here.
This is a nature reserve, and that is a very bad thing. We're in the West Bank, and nature reserves are one of the many ways that the Israeli occupation uses in order to capture Palestinian land. The valley was the site of several Palestinian communities which were ethnically cleansed after the start of the occupation. And then the occupation created the nature reserve mostly on agricultural lands of the Palestinian village of Deir Istian. The land was taken, the Palestinians were kicked out, and then a separation wall was built between the valley and Deir Istian. In 1983, the area was turned into a nature reserve, but that had nothing to do with the concern for the environment. The Palestinians were managing the area just fine, but they were kicked out and several Israeli settlements were set up in their place. Like that one, which immediately started dumping sewage into the water canal. Now the settlements keep expanding and building within the nature reserve. There are 43 nature reserves like this one in the West Bank. This is the perfect example of the occupation greenwashing its colonial practices.
So it's important to note here that you can even see at one point during the clip.
In 1983, the area was turned operation wall.
Yeah, he shows like the dead crabs floating in the stream. I don't know. TikTok is just not. not very easy to scrub through videos. Yeah, there it is. So basically they're flooding all their sewage, all their toxic chemicals and stuff into the environment. And it's just another way that you can force Palestinians off their land. And then you can tell here that they have no regard for the land. They just want to build settlements and contaminate the area so that Palestinians won't be able to farm there, even if they were able to.
Week, this Palestinian village will...
This next one is about, and once again, continuing with Andre's coverage, he's done a really good job here of highlighting stuff in the West Bank, because I've really tried to set this up as that, you know, Gaza is not the end product here. You know, we're going to see, and we already are seeing, things escalate in the West Bank, and so I wanted to make sure that we were shining a spotlight over there as well, because you're really not going to see a lot of coverage from mainstream media on the West Bank.
Next week, this Palestinian village will no longer exist. It is being successfully ethnically cleansed as we speak, and we're not in the West Bank. We're in the Nakab Desert, and every single Palestinian Bedouin resident
so just south of the West Bank.
Passport. The Israeli state refuses to recognize many Bedouin Palestinian communities in the Nakab, and many of them are under demolition orders, and the homes are destroyed over and over again. Here in al-Hiran in 2017, during one of the demolition orders, the police murdered a resident, and then tried to cover it up by accusing him of being affiliated with armed groups. When it became obvious that that's not the case, Netanyahu had to apologize for the false accusation, but not for the murder itself. The villagers here now are forced to demolish their own homes under threat of massive fines that they are completely unable to pay. And again, everyone here has an Israeli passport. The villagers' only crime is being Palestinian. So next time someone tells you that Israeli Arabs have full rights within Israel, you can tell them about this story.
So he's absolutely right about that. So he mentions that they have Israeli passports, and Bedouins are sort of a nomadic group. They will live, you know, they'll live on farmland, they'll live in the caves, you know, they're people that move around and live in various places. But even though they have Israeli passports, Israeli papers, Palestinians are considered second-class citizens and do not get the same benefits that an Israeli citizen would get. So he's right. When people say, you know, oh, there is no apartheid, you know, they can vote in Israeli elections just like anyone else, you know, they can be considered equal, and that's just absolutely not true. And this is just one of the many stories that proves that to be false. Next here, I have an emotional moment as Palestinian prisoner Rula Hassanein is reunited with her daughter after spending 10 months in an Israeli jail. Rula was a journalist who was among 90 Palestinian prisoners freed from Israeli jails as part of a ceasefire deal in Gaza. And let me see if I can full screen that video there. And Palestinians are notoriously not allowed to celebrate in public. They believe that this will cause some sort of dissent, and so the Israeli government can actually jail you and your family again for celebrating. So tell me it's an equal democracy, please. Try to tell me that a democracy or a government that is in the right would do something like that. You know, why would they want to suppress a celebration of, a public celebration of Palestinians seeing their long-lost family members who were often jailed without charges? You know, for example, she was a mother and a journalist, not a terrorist, not a bomber. She didn't do anything crazy. And they can be held without charges for an indefinite amount of time. It's not like the United States is a democracy and, you know, there has to be probable cause. There has to be good reason. You have to be charged with a crime before you are held, and then you can only be held, you know, in some states 24 to 48 hours before they have to let you go if there's not, you know, a confession or some sort of suitable amount of evidence that you know proves this to be true. If there's not enough for a conviction, then yeah, they just have to let you go at that point if they don't have anything that they can charge you with. Oh boy, all right, this one's a doozy here. This is an article from Zeteo here, and it says, here's what you can do to keep democracy alive during Trump's second term. It states that authoritarians thrive on fear and hopelessness. Here are 17 things you can do to not give in to such negativity. So I'm going to kind of hit the Cliff's Notes here, but you can read the whole article. I do have a link in the description down below. So, number 1 is be brave. Avoid helpless and hopeless talk. Authoritarians want you to feel powerless because it makes their work easier. Courage, faith, and optimism are essential. Fascism feeds on cynicism and pessimism. Starve it. I can't even say words. No regime lasts forever. Resolve to do your part to ensure the survival of democracy. Choose to believe that we will find a way to come out stronger. The next one, cultivate empathy. Authoritarians defeat democracy by trying to destroy empathy. Their strategies depend on dehumanization, demonization, and division. One of the best ways to resist is to cultivate empathy. Do your best to understand other people's feelings and perspectives. Empathy is a powerful antidote to fascism and hatred. Democracy depends on empathy, and you can't have democracy without it. Speaking of Israel, you know? Okay. So number 3, stay focused. Authoritarians try to overwhelm you with constant attacks to keep you distracted and unbalanced. We see this all the time, right? We see it with that there are so many issues that everybody cares about, right? There's abortion, there's climate change, there's Palestine, there's gun control, there's, you know, whatever's happening, school shootings, anything that happens in the news on a daily basis, you know, Trump's 15 or 20 executive orders, you know, abolishing this, abolishing that, getting rid of all the health agencies. I mean, it's so many things that you become inundated and you sort of lose focus. And yeah, they try to attack you on so many different levels with, you know, even the immigration stuff, with the forced evacuations of people. Even if you are a citizen, you can still be lumped in thanks to ICE and thrown in jail. Uh-oh, we have a YouTube. I don't know if you can refresh. Can't spell words. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. I wanted to make sure everything's still up and running there. Okay. So other than focus, there is be proactive. Defeating authoritarianism will require a movement of dedicated citizens. Get involved in your community. Show up to protests or meetings if you can. Donate to organizations doing crucial pro-democracy work. You know, you can be a part of boycotts. You can support candidates, companies, initiatives that prioritize democratic values at the local level. So, you know, even if you can't show up to some of these things, if you're disabled or hey, maybe some of those protests aren't happening in your area. You live in a small town in the middle of nowhere. You can still be a part of organizing online and voicing things and getting the truth out there. Maybe it's you sitting and making a TikTok video or, you know, doing what I'm doing and, you know, creating a YouTube channel where you talk about politics and bring light to lesser known topics that the mainstream media often ignores. The next one is foster real connections. So these regimes isolate people and encourage fear and distrust. So build strong relationships with your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, because what they rely on is you becoming enemies with everyone around you and everyone becoming disconnected and distrustful of each other, that they only become trustful in the authoritarian power. Number 6 is avoid brain rot and lies. Social media is overrun with clickbait traps that profit from outrage and misdirection. Block these and seek out legitimate information sources grounded in truth and reality. Don't just get caught up in your own bubbles. And you have to know everything that's going around in the world from every perspective so that you can form your own. So it's important not to necessarily put yourself in a liberal bubble or a right-wing bubble, because then you do sort of miss out on the broader context and the ability to make decisions for yourself. So do basic fact checks before sharing memes, texts, or stories, because oftentimes the stuff that we see that we go, oh, that's good, or oh, I relate to that, or oh, I really hate this guy, I'm so glad that he's guilty of this. If you look it up and you find that that's been fact-checked, by a reliable source, and they say, hey, actually, this guy didn't do this thing. So, I lost my train of thought. You got me.
Basically, just make sure you're double, triple checking.
Yes.
Looking things up, figuring things out. Even if there's some censorship going on, maybe find news sources outside of your bubble, maybe in other countries, because they will report on things going on here.
That's right.
And they'll do it pretty unbiased for the most part.
Thank you. Share a positive message when possible. Donald Trump and his ilk want the country to be angry, fearful, and polarized because this is the soil from which their darkest policies will grow. While it's essential to stand in fierce opposition to his regime, we must also offer a positive message centered on the value of freedom and what it really means. When the pendulum swings against the Republicans, we must be ready with a compelling and moral vision for a better future. Stand for something. So I think what that means is be educated about all these policies. Know your opinions and know your battles. Know all that you need to know to be able to advocate for your positions and to be able to find the people that you need to vote for and the communities that you need to be a part of and the people that you need to advocate and speak for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Demand accountability. Authoritarians thrive on impunity, and this is another thing with Trump. There's so many allegations against this guy and his ilk, whether it's Pete Hegseth or whether it's Elon Musk or whether it's Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio, all these unqualified people that have been placed in these positions, some of them that have multiple sexual allegations or drinking problems. You have to demand accountability for this stuff. And you have to write letters, sign petitions, participate in boycotts, bdsmovement.net for the Palestine stuff. Demand transparency and fairness at every level. Corruption and injustice wither under the light of scrutiny. And it's really easy to become sort of, just over-encumbered by the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court is largely right-wing and largely not considered unbiased anymore. It's largely become a partisan wing of, the Trump and Republican presidency. It is easy to become burdened by the fact that Congress is also majority Republican by a slim margin. But nevertheless, he has the power of all three branches of government to do his bidding. So it is very easy to become extraordinarily depressed by that insurmountable odds. But you have to know that in 2 years is the midterms, and we have a chance to advocate and turn things around. But you got to sculpt the Democratic Party that you want to see, and not the corporate Democrats that are taking payoffs from Meta to shut down TikTok, your favorite source of information, and not the Democrats that wanted to bomb Gaza into submission, and not the Democrats that didn't codify Roe v. Wade. You know, whatever it is, whatever the issues are that you care about, you need to make sure that the Democratic Party, either you're running or your friends are running or somebody's running, that knows the policies that need to happen and have the skills and the courage to make it happen, and not just use it as a cool thing. Well, like, oh, in 4 years we can use, oh, I'll defend abortion for re-election, you know? We can use it every 4 years if we never actually solve the issue. Yikes.
Learn your representatives' numbers. Call them.
Mm-hmm.
Be annoying.
Yeah.
Hold them to their jobs. They don't want to do the jobs. They just want to get rich. Hold them to their jobs. Hold them accountable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, they don't know if you don't call. If you don't call, if you don't write, then they just think, oh, well, whatever I think is right, or all the Republicans that are calling me, you know, seem to want this. So even if you're in a Republican, you know, congressional district, I mean, you should call and let those morons know your policies and let them know that they're wrong, you know? So, engage young people. This is pretty easy. The next generation will inherit the consequences of today's struggles. Engage young people in conversations about democracy, freedom, justice, and the climate crisis. Empower them with tools, education, mentorship to shape the future. Encourage them to imagine a better future and support them in creating it. Because let's be honest, I mean, most of the young people in this country, whether it's Gen Z, the millennials, what have you, they are largely left-wing people. And that is what often the boomer generation, which mostly votes right-wing, is extraordinarily scared of. So we have a chance to turn things around for potentially a long period of time, because eventually the boomers are going to, you know, die out at a certain point, and it's going to be up to the next generation to step up. It's a passing of the guard. It's happened with every generation, and it's inevitable. It's going to happen to us someday. We're going to have to be able to pass the mantle on to another younger generation, and we want to make sure that we impart the right values. I appreciate that subscription to the channel. So it is important that we, you know, not just become stuck in our own little bubbles and only talking with our friends that are our age, or just talking to our parents that may or may not want to listen to us, you know, based on their political values. And you'd be surprised. Not all elders, you know, I know I'm painting with what seemed like a broad brush when I say, oh, all boomers are mostly this, but you might be surprised. You might talk to some elders that might have the same point of view you have, or they might be able to be convinced. And you're not going to win every argument, and you're not always going to be able to turn everyone over to your side of politics. But if you can at least make them see the world through your lens of what your experience is like and what the experience of those around you are, going back to the empathy thing, if you can make sure that people around you know what empathy is and can actually take action using empathy, that's key. Number 10 is don't...
It's going to take a lot of patience. Empathy takes a lot of patience.
It absolutely does. Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. This number 10 is a big one, and it's don't help Trump. And I think one of the important things here is that we've seen a lot of, like we saw, what was it, Joe and Mika from Fox and Friends or what? No, they're from MSNBC. They went over to Mar-a-Lago to become buddy-buddy with Trump, and you know, they said it's because they wanted to make sure that he would come on the show and they would be able to cover him and have interviews and stuff. They wanted to maintain the relationship. Don't help Trump. So, you know, what CNN does all freaking day is they help Trump. They talked about him even during the campaign all day and night. They cover all his rallies, and they literally spread his word to a wider people, and they make it all about him in a way that, you know, other candidates don't get that amount of free press, of free coverage. Most people have to lobby for that coverage and have to, you know, seek that out and pay for their time. And it also goes to government officials. Don't help Trump. It's not that hard, you know? If he's doing these authoritarian stuff, don't vote for it. You know, filibuster. Be the opposition. I mean, you'll be lauded for being brave, because this is going to go down in the history books, all of it. Now, number 11 is an interesting one. It says, don't argue with his supporters. He says, your chances of converting a pro-Trump voter are virtually zero. At this point, their support for him is a physical structure in their brains. Instead of arguing, focus on motivating fellow pro-democracy citizens to get more active. I agree, but I also don't think everyone is entirely lost. I think sometimes when you hit them hard enough with facts, sometimes you can knock them out of it. But it is a cult, and there is an amount of brain rot that comes with it, and that's not going to break and shatter until whatever they're advocating for happens to them. So until the gun control policies happen to grandma, or until your sister who happens to be Mexican gets hauled away by ICE, you know, whether she has papers or not, all of a sudden it's not going to turn these people around until it's an empathy thing here. They don't have empathy until it happens to them, and they're like, oh, does this happen to other people too? Oh, shit, am I one of them being dragged away? You know? So, I agree and I disagree. I don't know. What do you think, Ashley? Because it's a tough one, right?
Sit there and like have the cyclical arguments constantly. That's not getting anyone anywhere.
Yeah.
They believe what they believe. For the most part, you can't really get them out of it until, like you said, something happens to them. Or somebody that they know, somebody they really care about.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have to hit home for them to even be able to realize and have that tiny bit of switch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which is where the patience from your empathy comes in. You're going to need it.
That's very true. Number 12 says, remember, this is a regime. Trump is not acting alone. He is a puppet of powerful would-be oligarchs who want a government of billionaires, of the billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires. Elon Musk's role as Trump's co-president is already creating tension among Trump's supporters. When the American people realize that the country is being run for the benefit of a handful of greedy billionaires, the tide will turn, expose them. Now, we talked a little bit about the broligarchy, didn't we?
The broligarchy.
And I did show the image, right? I showed the
stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Don't use their freaking Bitcoin.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Don't give Elon and Trump and these clowns more money by doing this.
They're scamming you. They're literally scamming you.
It literally is a pyramid scheme. They get you to buy their coins, and then when the coin pile stacks up high enough, they pocket the coins and leave you holding the bag.
Yeah, you might get lucky, but they're betting on the fact that you're going to get into the gambling thing where you're like, ooh, I could do it again.
Mm-hmm.
I could win bigger. Mm-hmm. And then you get stuck in a hole.
People have lost their entire, savings and, wagered a lot of their lives on Bitcoin and stuff like that, only to have it blow up in their faces. And
exactly.
The Trump
Those
thing
people
specifically
have too much
is a
money,
meme coin.
So much money, they could do a lot more change with it, and they don't, because all they want is more for themselves. It's all about me, me, me.
That's absolutely right, and that's all the billionaires think about. But I think the delusion that Republicans have is that, if we give the billionaires more money, it's going to trickle down to us. Like, if we give them more money, they'll create more jobs, and they'll give us a raise or something, and maybe someday I'll be a billionaire too, right next to Elon.
That would be lovely, but it's not going to happen. They are going to scam and money and nickel and dime you until they can get as much money or keep piling on the money for themselves. There's really no limit. They just want more. That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's all for...
They are gambling addicts themselves. They want more.
That's very true. They just want another summer home, a cabin up in the mountains, another yacht, whatever it is. And there's no limit to the things that they chase, the extravagancy that they want. And like you said, it is sort of a gambling game for them. It's they're always going to want more. And
you can pay attention to the things they do.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it was when you saw it on TV. Take note of that. Hold them accountable for that. Hold your people accountable for holding them accountable. Because they don't really need to be in the politics. Why are they in the politics?
Very true. Number 13 says, learn from history. Authoritarianism, oligarchy, and tyranny are not new inventions. Study past movements for democracy and justice to understand what works and what doesn't. From the civil rights movement to resistance efforts in authoritarian regimes worldwide, history is full of lessons and inspiration to guide us in our current struggle. I would add, there's a lot of things you need to study. World War II. You could read the book On Tyranny. You could read the science fiction novel 1984, which really gets into a lot of the stuff that we're seeing today. I would say study a lot of those things. Do you have anything on that, Ashley, on learning from history so that we don't repeat it?
There are some censoring things around the banned book lists, but if you can get access to them, find them. Read that literature. It's banned for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Not a valid or legitimate reason. It's knowledge. Read as much knowledge as you can. Gain knowledge, recognize patterns.
Very true. Next, support artists and the arts. Literature, music, and art are crucial to a healthy society and a functioning democracy. Fund them and support them in every way you can. Artists, musicians, and writers will help inspire the changes we need. Buy tickets, buy art, buy books, and read or listen to them.
Yes,
I think we see a lot
support
of
your
that,
local
right?
artists, especially.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You could. I just said support your local artists, especially.
Yes.
A lot of the things they'll probably be doing are really relevant to what's going on. Pay attention. Learn things about people that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of art is political and important. Learn.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And further adding to what you have here is I've noticed there's a lot of musicians, especially on TikTok, that will sing about political things. They'll sing about the fires in California. They'll sing about how Donald Trump is abolishing all the health governmental agencies around health. And today he's talking about banning FEMA because he's like, FEMA's no good. It doesn't do any good. So it's like the artists and musicians will bring this to light. And that includes like the comedians and the late night show hosts. Like these are all people that are going to take the news and divulge it and create something for it with their passion. So, I mean, if you read comic books, you're going to read comic books about police brutality. You're going to read comic books that are going to touch on issues like authoritarianism. I mean, that's the whole reason most comic books were even made. The reason Captain America punched Hitler. The reason Superman was beating up the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, it all ties together. These characters were originally built as a way to distill American values, democracy, and even a little sprinkle of the Christian religion in there to promote, peace doing the right thing for the right reasons, caring about your fellow man, all these various things. That's a way that art is distilled into our culture, in the same way that Star Wars was about the Vietnam War, and George Lucas made that series of movies as a protest against the Vietnam War. The Ewoks were the Vietnamese. The rebels, that's them. And the evil empire is actually America. That's what he's explained it several times. So it's an allegory. It's symbolism. It's not telling you how to think, and it's not forcing it down your throat, but there's something sort of, if you look into it, there's a deeper interpretation of all media that is out there. Because everything's inspired by something. 15, take care of yourself. This is a challenging era. Saving democracy will take lots of energy, passion, and stamina. Take care of your health. Get plenty of sleep. Drink lots of water. Exercise. We're all in this together. I can't believe he said that, for the long haul.
There was a World War II vet that was doing an interview, and he said his best advice is to live your life. Do what you can. Help people if you can. Try your best to help make change, but also live your life.
That's very true. If you have mental health, you got to take care of that stuff. If you have disabilities, don't let that hold you back, but also don't push yourself so hard that you hurt yourself or become, harmed in any sort of way. It takes a lot of passion, and that stuff comes with a cost. That expending that social energy of protesting, of, chatting in forums online, making videos on TikTok, whatever it is, like all of that has a cost to it. Even if you don't feel it physically, there can be a mental cost. There can be a cost, sort of to your soul, even depending on what side you are on some of these issues, right? It's definitely important. Number 16 is celebrate victories. The road to preserving freedom and democracy will be long and challenging, but it's essential to recognize progress when it happens. Celebrating victories, no matter how small, can keep hope alive. Optimism and spirit matter. Don't be a downer. Help inspire others to stay engaged in the fight. And I think it's important to note, it's real easy to get depressed and focus on all the negatives and all of the horrible things that are happening day by day by day, and to spread that with other people. And we sort of do that when we're sharing TikToks or whatever. It's always oh, look what Trump's doing now. He's banned women from going to the restroom. Oh, look at this. He's brought back, segregated water fountains. It's very easy to get pulled in on all the negatives and to spread that in a way that it creates that pessimism and that demotivation and that depression in everybody, where everyone just all of a sudden feels so inundated that they can't stand up and fight. You have anything on that, Ashley? Okay. Well, the last step is persist. And it says persistence is the best resistance. And to persist is to, continue an action repeatedly. And to continue to move forward no matter what is happening. Okay. So that is once again from Mehdi Hassan over at Zeteo. Just an absolutely incredible article here that really... Oh, actually, that's George Lakoff and Gil Duran. But I guess Mehdi runs Zeteo. But yeah, definitely an important article there. Okay, so next... This is kind of an update of the violation of the ceasefire. So Israel has already violated the ceasefire several times over. But it says here 137 bodies found in Rafah on day 2 of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. There's even a video here, which I'm not going to show. A Palestinian child was killed by sniper fire despite the ceasefire. So this was in Rafah, and there's video footage of that. Of course, Palestinians returning to their destroyed homes, trying to find, any sense of shelter, or if there's anything here. Now, the 2,000-pound bombs that I talked about earlier. Let's dive into this a little bit. Trump is expected to lift the Biden administration's freeze on the supply of 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. Now, if we look at these are Mark 84 bombs in Gaza, killing dozens of Palestinian civilians. They can destroy buildings and kill people hundreds of meters away. So the reason this was, the reason this is no longer used typically by America and other countries is that it causes too much collateral damage in war. In war, you want to be precise. Even when you're bombing locations, you want to make sure that there are either no civilian casualties or that they are at some sort of minimum. Now, when you're using something like this is because you want to commit ethnic cleansing. This is because you want the largest amount of destruction. And you can see the crater that it leaves, a 10 to 15 meter, 33 to 50 foot crater that goes both deep and wide. And so it can inflict damage within 1,000 feet, and is the largest of the Mark 80 series of weapons, and is typically dropped from F-16s or F-15s, which are jets provided by our country. They are not built anywhere else. They are built by America for this. This is expressly to cause harm. And Trump okaying this is basically condemning even more civilian death and more genocide to continue to happen here. So I'm just going to move that over so you can see that image better. But yeah, that is what we're looking at when it comes to these missiles. And of course, there's stuff continuing in the West Bank here. There have been many, both Israelis and Palestinians have been injured in the West Bank. And the Israelis of course, have been setting fire to structures in the West Bank. Violent arson attacks there as soldiers raid the West Bank. So once again, it's not just the Gaza thing. The violence from the Israel side is spreading into the West Bank. So Israeli settlers have launched more violent arson attacks as soldiers raid the West Bank. We've covered this in the past, but it continues. Palestinian properties are on fire with smoke billowing above amid a renewed wave of violent attacks on Palestinians in the aftermath of the Gaza ceasefire deal. Dozens of settlers protected by Israeli soldiers are believed to have participated. And so apparently settlers have stormed a Palestinian home and caused damage to several vehicles, chanting slogans calling for the killing and displacement of Palestinians. And there's a short clip right here. Just see stuff burning. Absolutely terrifying. This next one is a Palestinian child who has a message for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Let me pull it up here. Let's take a look. Let's hear. I'm going to translate what he's saying because it's I'm going to turn down the volume just a little bit so that you can hear me over him. So he says, "You strengthen yourself against us with your machinery, bulldozers, tanks, and rockets. We strengthen ourselves against you with the words and letters of God." He says, "Praise God, we won, we won." And he puts up the peace sign as he's, waving the Palestinian flag. So I think he's right to an extent here. He's saying that, the people are on our side because of the outright destruction, the genocide, the killing, the apartheid. The whole world is seeing on display what you're doing. And so the mask is off, the gloves are off, and people are not going to forget this. And there are a lot of people, more than ever, I think, that have come around to the Palestinian side of things, and they're seeing the injustice and the killing, and those boycotts of Israeli products and services, and any even U.S. company that wants to have dealings with Israel, boycotting those companies, whether it's McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks, Intel, when they had a processor chip factory that they were going to build in Israel, they shut it down due to the pressures and the boycotts. So, and those chips end up being used as guidance in the missiles that Israel uses to bomb Gaza. So, I mean, it all ties in, man. Like, it's all the free Happy Meals and Cokes that are given to the IDF while they commit their war crimes. I mean, it's just that simple, man. And for me, I boycott everything Israeli, whether it's and Sabra hummus is included in the BDS boycotts, but I boycott everything because I think every single person in that country needs to feel the pressure of what's going on, whether they're on our side or not, because they need to put pressure on the country, whether that's invading and causing a coup, or whether it's making their voices heard in protests and having their people in parliament step up for them. It's got to be something. So something's got to give. So in the same way that we boycott everything Russia while they're committing their war in Ukraine and their economy is greatly suffering, I think Israel needs to pay the same price from countries all over the world to where they become so isolated, and they already are becoming isolated because of the violence and because of the bombings in not only in Palestine, but in Syria, in Lebanon, in these neighboring countries. They're creating more enemies, and bombing Yemen too. They're creating more enemies. The United States is creating more enemies. We're creating dangerous enemies that are going to come after us someday. So we're creating the next terrorist attack. This next video is, have you ever seen the apartheid system in action? Let me show you. At the entrance of the Palestinian village Al-Funduk, the Israeli army checkpoint permits only cars with yellow plates, which are Israelis, to pass, while cars with white plates that are Palestinians are barred from entering. So you'll be able to see here in a second when they zoom in. You can see that some cars have yellow plates and they are Israeli, and some have white plates and they're Palestinians. Palestinians are not allowed to travel on the same roads as Israelis. They have dirt roads that Palestinians can take throughout the West Bank, and some of the paved roads are for the Israelis. So you can see that they let the yellow car through, but now they're stopping the car with the white plates. And they either say, oh, you got to go back, or I got to check your papers, I got to inspect your car at gunpoint, I got to, run the mirror under your car, get out the dog that sniffs for bombs. I have personally been to the West Bank, and I have seen this firsthand. They have searched vehicles that we were in and had us step out, and they searched the trunk, they searched under the car, they asked us questions at gunpoint, who we are, where we come from, what our religion was, and we said, we're from America, we're from Texas, George Bush was the president at the time, so we said, yeah, George Bush, and they said, oh, George Bush, he sends us our guns, yeah, we love him. So, you had to sort of sweet talk them in a way. And had we said we were Palestinian or related to Palestinians, that would not fly. So, we said we're Americans, we are Christians, and that's true. It is true. And of course they look at your passports and they see where you travel and where you've come from. So we often asked in some countries that they not stamp our passport, because if Israelis see certain stamps, they will either not let you through or worse. So it's a very dangerous situation. So more on the West Bank here. There is no ceasefire in the occupied West Bank. Israel is locking down Palestinian towns and killing civilians with airstrikes and deadly raids. January 21st, Israel carried out raids and bombings on Jenin, killing at least 9 Palestinians. The attacks reportedly left bodies in the streets, and Israeli forces fired on ambulances trying to reach injured people. Now, that's a war crime. It was a war crime when Israelis were disguising the IDF in ambulances and getting out and committing raids in the West Bank. It's illegal to fire on ambulances and aid groups and humanitarian aid, and no one's holding them accountable. So the attacks reportedly left bodies in the streets, and Israeli forces fired on ambulances trying to reach injured people. Doctors and nurses are among the wounded. Israel's ground troops are expected to stay in Jenin and its refugee camp for several days in what Israel called an extensive and significant operation. Of course, you can see the lasers from their guns being pointed. Israel has also closed more checkpoints and increased restrictions across the West Bank. In Bethlehem, Israeli forces set up a reported 89 new roadblocks and barriers across the area, blocking and trapping Palestinians. So the commute to get to work, to get to school, to get, to the center of commerce. Now they're putting more checkpoints in your way where you can be arrested, where you can just be held up, or where they can just say, hey, you're not getting through. You're stuck in whatever little area we decide to fence you in. Israel has reportedly also shut down entrances to cities in the central, western, southern parts of the territory, including Ramallah, Hebron, Qalqila, and Salfit. Israel's assault on Jenin started as forces of the Palestinian Authority withdrew. Now, once again, I mentioned that the PA is actually the right hand of Israel. They're not an authority that stands directly for the Palestinian people. They're just another arm of enforcement. So the PA had put Jenin under siege for almost 50 days. Since October 2023, Israel has detained at least 14,300 Palestinians from the West Bank and killed around 860, including 180 children. Most recent child victim of Israel's attacks was just 14. Ahmad Rashid Rushdie Jazar was shot in the chest by Israeli forces on January 19th while sitting with his friends near a school in Sebastia. So there you have it. Next, we're going to take a look at the ceasefire. After the ceasefire in Gaza, what has happened in the West Bank is that settlers are escalating. We already talked earlier in this episode about arson attacks. Well, now we're going to show you some of the arson attacks. So settlers are escalating. Settlers are escalating these arson attacks, or what they call price tag attacks in the occupied West Bank. So what do they mean by price tag? Well, price tag means anything good that happens to Palestinians, prisoners released, ceasefire, whatever it may be, there's a price that comes with it. And Israelis will enact that price by, setting things on fire, killing people, beating people, jailing people, stealing people's land. So, as you can see here, 21 people injured, properties on fire. There's a cost to every victory in this war for the Palestinians, in this genocide. They uproot olive trees, they burn them down. So that's why they call them price tag attacks. So they're in response to anything favorable that happens. And it also happens after the removal of illegal settler outposts in the West Bank. So anytime there's even a loss for Israelis, they go, hey, well, there's consequences, and we're going to dish them out. And because there is no IDF that would say, hey, this is wrong that you are hurting the Palestinians. We have to stand for some sort of law and order. No, they stand and protect these Jews. They're doing this, these Zionists. So settlers have carried out over 1,400 attacks on Palestinian land in the West Bank, and a lot of this stuff, it's on camera. That's olive trees being lit on fire and burned and uprooted. And so, yeah, it coincides with Donald Trump reversing sanctions as he was reversing sanctions imposed by the Biden administration. And here, there's a small group of Israeli settlers who were widely seen as insufficient against broader settler violence. So there were some people that were trying to, stop this, but not helping. The trucks should not enter Gaza if there's no exchange. The fuel should not enter the strip. That's crazy. Settlers have relative freedom to act violently. Over the past decade, Israeli authorities have closed almost 94% of cases where Israelis were accused of harming Palestinians. So yeah, it's a very unequal justice system. Building settlements on occupied land where most Israeli settlers lived is widely considered a war crime, and it is against international law as well.
This
video is a little late. I think this video is interesting because we haven't seen a lot of coverage from CNN in Gaza or the West Bank. So this is courtesy of CNN, and this is the IDF removing people in the occupied West Bank.
CNN shows a long chain of Palestinians being escorted by Israeli security forces in the occupied West Bank. Residents say over 60 people were arrested, including children. This comes just after Israel released 90 Palestinian prisoners in the West Bank as part of the first phase of a ceasefire deal with Hamas. The UN Human Rights Office also noted an uptick in violence from Israeli settlers and security forces following the ceasefire and hostage release agreement. The IDF say they conducted a counter-terrorist operation in the area after Molotov cocktails were hurled at Israeli vehicles, and that soldiers detained several suspects for questioning, and the incident is still under review.
Under review. So, once again, we see that CNN only really covers Palestine from the Israeli perspective during the day, and then at like midnight they'll do some pro-Palestine coverage, or on TikTok they'll put out some pro-Palestine stuff, but it's very rare. So that's why I say you can't always trust everything mainstream media is feeding you. There's often a bias behind it and a prejudice when it comes to whoever the newscaster is that's running the show.
I asked you.
Now this one is Chris Van Hollen, U.S. Senator, asking Elise Stefanik, Donald Trump's nominee to be the U.S. ambassador to the UN. She refused to say whether she believes Palestinians have a right to self-determination. But she did say that she agrees that Israel has a biblical right to the entire occupied West Bank. So once again, this is Elise Stefanik, Donald Trump's nominee to be U.S. ambassador to the UN. And let's see what she has to say here.
I asked you in my office also about whether Palestinians have the right of self-determination. My understanding was you said yes. Do you have a different answer today?
That was not the direct question that we discussed. I said the Palestinian people...
You believe the Palestinians have the right of self-determination?
I believe the Palestinian people deserve so much better than the failures that they've had
from
terrorist leadership.
It's just a pretty simple question.
And I believe we need
I take it,
peace in the region. Of course they deserve human rights.
So...
I want to ensure that, number one, we bring the hostages home.
So do all of us. Representative Stefanik, let me just ask you. I have 30 seconds left. I'm rarely surprised by answers in my office, but I did ask you whether you subscribe to the views of Finance Minister Smotrich.
Of who? I'm sorry, Finance.
Smotrich, this is the Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich.
Listen right there.
The former National Minister Smotrich.
Of who? I'm sorry.
Of who? Of who? I'm sorry? You're going to be U.S. ambassador to the UN and you don't even know the basic names of Israeli, captains and capos and figures here? You just know maybe Netanyahu? You don't know Ben Gvir? You don't know Smotrich? Even with my political knowledge. I know this. Most people on the street know this stuff. They know some of these names because you hear them if you're just even a little bit enlightened on the issue. If you watch even a little bit of news, you'll start to hear these names over and over and over. So, I mean, that shows a lack of experience and a lack of qualification despite her terrible
Finance
views.
Minister Smotrich.
I'm sorry,
Smotrich, this is the Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich, and the former National Security Minister Ben-Gvir, who believe that Israel has a biblical right to the entire West Bank. And in that conversation, you told me that, yes, you shared that view. Is that your view today?
Yes.
Oh, okay. There you go. That's all he wanted to hear, man. That's all he wanted was a direct answer. Jesus.
Stealing.
Now, this next video is Susan Abu al-Hawa raises the question, what if the roles were reversed? So what if it's, instead of, the Zionist Israelis killing Palestinians, what if the roles were reversed and it was the Palestinians killing the Jews? Like, how would the response to the situation be different, So let's listen, and let's listen here, and let's put the shoe on the other foot here, and listen to Susan Abu al-Hawa as she explains, what if the roles were reversed between Palestine and Israel?
If Palestinians had spent the last 8 decades stealing Jewish homes, expelling, oppressing, imprisoning, poisoning, torturing, killing, raping them. If Palestinians had killed an estimated 300,000 Jews in 1 year, targeted their journalists, their thinkers, their healthcare workers, their athletes, their artists, bombed every Israeli hospital, university, library, museum, cultural center, synagogue, and simultaneously set up an observation platform where citizens came to watch their slaughter as if a tourist attraction. If Palestinians had corralled them by the hundreds of thousands into flimsy tents, bombed them in so-called safe zones, burned them alive, cut off their food and water and medicine. If Palestinians made their children wander barefoot with empty pots, made them gather the flesh of their parents into plastic bags, bury their siblings, their cousins, their friends, made them sneak out from their tents at night to sleep on their parents' graves, made them pray for death, just to join their families and not be alone in this terrible world. If we terrorize them so utterly that their children lose their hair, lose their memory, lose their minds, and made those as young as 4 and 5 die of heart attacks. If Palestinians used wheat flour, a truck, to lure starving Jews, then opened fire on them as they gathered to collect the day's bread. If Palestinians finally allowed a food delivery into a shelter with hungry Jews, then set fire to the entire shelter and aid truck before anyone could taste a bite of the food. If Jewish women were forced to give birth in filth, get C-sections or leg amputations without anesthesia, if the world were watching the live-streamed systematic annihilation of Jews in real time, there would be no debating whether that constituted terrorism or genocide.
She got it. Nail right on the head there. It's difficult, and it's exhausting to have to compare that reality to get people to pay any sort of attention or to care. Let me set up
as time went on.
Some more clips we have here. This is a British surgeon Sorry, let me pull that back right there. Went to start at the beginning there. Crank the volume. This is British surgeon Victoria Rose speaking on medical cases of children in Gaza.
As time went on, we saw more and more children, and certainly when I went back in the August, we were at NASA for a month, and I operated again every day, and most of my lists were just children.
What was it? Burns? Was it amputations?
It's in an explosion. When a blast goes off, everything around you gets weaponized, so all the masonry and bits of car sort of get whipped up in that energy, and then they hit a civilian at quite a high velocity, and that will penetrate the skin, and it will either break the bone underneath or it will penetrate the chest or the abdomen. And that was the bulk of what we were seeing. But we also saw a lot of burns because of the heat of the blast. And then we saw bullet injuries. So we saw a lot of sniper injuries, but the children seemed to be specifically hit by quadcopters, which are drones that have firepower capability. And lots of them were sort of shot in the back, in the head, in the upper torso.
But these are the intentional targeting of children? I mean, if it's the head and torso and back? And they're quadcopters, so they're following.
So they're operated by somebody that's watching what they're doing. So I assume that they are targeting children. What we saw was that the bulk of the children were between the age of 5 and probably 15. And when we were with MSF, the theory was that all of the children under 5
Without Borders
were of an age where their parents would pick them up and run with them. And obviously anyone 15 and older is quite agile on their feet and can run away. But that tranche of children between 5 and 15 are often sort of, confused by what's going on, are not the quickest to get up. And so that was, I think, why we saw so many injuries in that age group.
And the trauma that these children must face. It's been said of Gaza that there's no post-traumatic stress disorder because there's no post. Did you experience this? Were you able to spend time in some cases with these children?
There definitely were children that have huge psychological issues. We had a 7-year-old called Mohammed who had been in a blast injury that had brought the house down that he was in, and he was with his father. And in the blast, his father had died, and his mother spoke beautiful English. And she said to me, he just won't speak to me, he won't look at you, he doesn't want to engage with any of the doctors, he just wants to see his father. It was quite a difficult problem because I was watching him not recover from an injury that he should recover from, in that we had amputated his leg and we'd closed it and we'd grafted it and we had closed all the wounds on his other leg, but the wounds just didn't heal. He wasn't eating, he kept getting infections, he just wasn't progressing, and that totally is due to his mental state.
And we know, of course, now that Gaza has the largest cohort of child amputees in the world.
In the world. And it's crazy that's the end of the video. But my God, I mean, the intentional targeting of children, you'd think it would end right there. That people would stand up and do something. Let me set up more videos here. I want to thank you all for being here today and for watching. I was very excited that so many people had voted in the poll to establish, some ideas about, when should the show be? What time should it be? How long should it be? Hang on, I might have closed some windows that might have some consequences here. Hang on. All right, there we go. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on our future videos and live streams, because sometimes these can pop out a little out of the blue, and I want you to know that they're happening. This next video is or actually this is not a video, this is really more of a post here. But Rami Ismail is you know, sort of a game developer and consultant and various things. Let me click on. Okay, I guess I would have to click off this tweet. Yeah, he helps people make good games in good ways. But that's a very kind summary of who he is. But he's a game dev, advisor, tool dev, community builder, amateur pilot. So yeah, he can fly you around. But he has something important about the developer in the Westbank that is working on this game. He says, it seems like we might actually need that production strategy for Dreams on a Pillow, which is the game about the 1948 Nakba, in case something happens to Rashid Abuide, because Israel went straight on from committing genocide in Gaza to starting the groundwork for ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. Different president, but U.S. backed as always. I hope he and his stay fine, but this is terrifying to watch. The world will do nothing as always because the U.S. holds Europe by the throat. That's crazy. But it is an unfortunate reality, and I want to keep you guys updated on the on what's going on with Dreams on a Pillow, because it is an interesting and innovative game, and I truly believe in what Rami and Rashid are doing in creating this game, and I can't wait to play it. Next, we have Gazan people returning to their demolished homesteads after the first day without strikes.
The first full day.
And we're going to take a look at, you know, what's left of Gaza here. Yeah, it's really a struggle to be doing all of this one-handed. I thought it would be a little easier. And I was like, this would be a good time to move my mouse to the left side, but it won't reach, so I have to like awkwardly reach across my desk. All right, so let's take a look here. This is from Gaza, the first day without constant bombing.
The first full day with no Israeli strikes from the sky, a chance to assess the true scale of what the bombs have already done, a chance to try and salvage whatever has somehow survived, to finally bury loved ones trapped beneath the rubble, to see whether your home is still standing. Tamam's house isn't. It's the first time she's seeing what remains. Things will get better, a relative tries to reassure her.
We've lost our entire lives.
Her granddaughter Taslim's home is still standing, but is badly damaged.
This was our house, the most beautiful house. We worked hard to build it and paid for every stone with our lifeblood.
Taslim is looking for her wedding clothes, trying to build a future with what's left from the past.
Is our punishment to live in Gaza amid death and destruction every day? We are people who want to live. We have souls and lives. Oof. I mean, it has to be shown, folks. I mean, we have to watch it over and over until something changes. I mean, this has to get out there, and this has to bring about some sort of change. And if we can't do it ourselves, we have to advocate so that the people who can bring about this change, our leaders and various others, can make the changes that need to be made and do the right thing and actually be on the right side of history here. Next, we have 5 Israelis under investigation for killing Palestinian man suddenly get their case dropped, even with a confession and ample evidence. So this is another way. This is another way in which the IDF can simply. Sorry, let me go back here. This is a one of the ways that the IDF can essentially say, oh, we don't investigate our own. We don't investigate Israelis. We don't convict Israelis. You know, there are people. So as we look here, 5 Israelis under investigation for killing Palestinian man suddenly get their case dropped, even with a confession and ample evidence. As we look here at this slideshow, Israel dropped a case against 5 Israeli settlers accused of kidnapping and killing a Palestinian man, despite video evidence and confessions. Roy Yifrach, Israel Bitan, Israel Peretz, Akiva Kaufman, and Sar Ophir, my Israeli names are not really up to par here, had been under investigation since November 2023 for binding, abducting, and killing a Palestinian man. At least one of the suspects, Yifrach, confessed to the killing. The victim's body was found in his vehicle. That's damning, dude. That's super damning. He confessed and the body was in his car? According to Israeli media, Yifrach was previously charged with impersonating an Israeli soldier to enter Gaza and steal weapons. Yifrach had allegedly told police and other suspects that he had killed Palestinians during the interrogation. Ophir claimed that Yifrach showed him a video of Yifrach stabbing a bound Palestinian man in the face. Like, these are crazy fucking people that we should be locking up forever and throwing away the damn key. Ophir also confessed in WhatsApp messages to having killed terrorists after allegedly torturing them both sexually and physically. Israel's state attorney dismissed the case, claiming there was a lack of sufficient evidence. He said the confessions were low credibility and bravado. I don't know what bravado means in that context. Ophir was also under investigation along with 2 other Israelis for allegedly abducting and beating a Palestinian man who they left bleeding and unconscious near a checkpoint in August of 2023. So that's actually before October 7th. In a separate case in July 2024, a group of 10 Israeli soldiers were arrested and charged for the rape of a detained Palestinian man. Even though the rape was caught on camera, 5 of the soldiers were released after a mob stormed their detention center. Less than 1% of Israeli soldiers accused of harming or killing Palestinians are ever charged. Of over 1,250 cases filed against Israeli soldiers from 2017 to 2021, only 11 cases have led to charges. That's the unequal justice system, and this is some of the heinous stuff with a massive burden of proof, of literal evidence of the body was found in the man's car. You can't get much more evidence than that. Video evidence and physical evidence, and then to just deny that to be true. It's insane. Big yikes. Palestinian woman mourning the loss of her home makes a brave declaration to stay and rebuild. This is what's, amidst all the horrible things, it's great to see the determination and the will of the human spirit. So this is a Palestinian woman mourning her home in Gaza.
Assalamu alaikum.
Peace be on you too. How are you, Auntie? God bless you and grant you health. Keep you safe. She's looking to see if she can find a mattress or a pillow. She said, "This is my home. I'm here with my son, my daughter, and 9 of my children. I don't know where to go. I really don't know where to go. Honestly, I don't know where we will go. It's up to God." So you're staying in the rubble of your house? This is my home. There it is. What's your message? Are you staying strong? Thank God. What else can we do? This is God's will. By God's grace, I came out with my children safe. She's lucky. Thanks to God. The house can be replaced, but I'm asking for a tent. I won't be satisfied if they give me a small... sorry, hang on, let me go back. I would be satisfied if they gave me a small tent and a bathroom, that's it. You would be satisfied with just a tent and a bathroom on the rubble of your house? Yes, it doesn't matter. Let him put it here. Where else can I go? Where can I go? Even if I have to rebuild stone by stone, I will stay. I have no one but God, and I came out safe with my kids. Thank God. Thank God. It's a powerful statement and a powerful will that she has to stay, and she's lucky that so much of her family actually survived, because there's a lot of people that have lost their entire families and they have nothing on top of that. We have a video here. I saw this on John Cusack's Twitter account, and it's just sort of an aerial view here of Gaza. And Afshin Ratansi, this is a retweet from them. This is what the so-called free world did to Gaza. And Afshin Ratansi is a host of Going Underground, more than 32 million views on YouTube, award-winning journalist. And he says, this is what the free world did to Gaza. This is what those who lecture the entire world about civilization and human rights did to Gaza. The nations that said they were the epitome of civilization brought nothing but barbaric, apocalyptic destruction. And sorry, I forgot to hit record here, so let me... So this is what the so-called free world did to Gaza. This is what those who lecture the entire world about civilization and human rights did to Gaza. The nations that said they were the epitome of civilization brought nothing but barbaric, apocalyptic destruction. And let's see it. I mean, look at what's left. Look at what's left of Gaza. I mean, just uninhabitable ruins and nothing but debris everywhere. Whatever's left of buildings are just walls and columns and floors. And that's what they have left to build on. And that's if the Israelis don't come and level all this and build beachfront settlements for all their people and steal the land, like it seems like Trump wants them to do. That's the reality of what we're looking at. How checkpoints work. It's definitely not apartheid, right? This is definitely key to see the disparity here. I'm going to mute the music here. But when Israel says it's not an apartheid, we're meant to show this video here. So these are some of the checkpoints that they have to walk through. You know, walled in, fenced up. And this is only for Palestinians. The Israelis can walk through just fine. And then when you pull up at a checkpoint, you have to open your trunk. They search you at gunpoint. They interrogate you. They ask you questions. They look under your car with mirrors. And yeah, she kind of hates Israel. And of course, there's all these barrier walls between the different cities. And of course, Gaza is completely walled in and inaccessible. And that's IDF soldiers searching trunks. And they can detain you for any reason. They don't even have to find anything. They can just say you're being detained. You have to show them that you have clearance, that you have a day pass to enter Jerusalem or whatever it may be. You know, just like the Nazis, papers please. You have to show them that you're allowed to pass through here. It reminds me exactly of what we've seen from Nazi Germany during World War II. I mean, these guys learned from the best, and they wrote the rule book, and now they are enacting yet another Holocaust. Israeli forces attacking Jenin in the West Bank. We kind of talked about this earlier.
After ceasefire came into effect,
but I wanted to find more videos, just explaining it deeper so that I could share that with you. So let's take a look.
2 days after ceasefire came into effect in Gaza, Israel's army launched a full-scale attack on the city of Jenin and its refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. The attack, which Israelis call in Operation Iron Wall, has killed at least 10 Palestinians and wounded 40.
See, they're fighting from inside an APC.
And
they're completely safe in there, just gunning people down.
Carrying out arrests and destroying streets around the camp, according to Palestinian news agency Rafah. The violence follows weeks of tensions during which Palestinian security forces have conducted operations to counter armed groups engaging in gunfights.
And that's the Palestinian Authority.
One resident said the situation was devastating, with people unable to leave for fear of being shot. The occupied West Bank has seen its worst violence in years since October 2023, when Israel launched its war on Gaza, with at least 847 Palestinians killed by either Israeli troops or settlers in the territory.
There you go. No better way to frame it. Journalist Bilal Mortaja dives into the site in Jabalia where Israeli soldiers force over 150 Palestinians to strip before detainment. Now, you remember we talked about Jabalia and we talked about the hospital and how they were stripping men and women. Well, this is a large scale operation here in Jabalia where they forced these men and women to strip their clothes and not put them back on. So they would strip them and search them for bombs, and then they would march them away, just in their boxers or maybe even in some cases completely naked. So you should be standing when they tell you to take off your clothes. This is what they did to everyone here in the hall and in the schools. There were almost 150 to 200 people present here in this place. These are their clothes because the forces forced them to take off their clothes and kept them naked and arrested whomever they wanted. Unfortunately, they let the others go to Gaza City and further south of Gaza. And it's important to note as well that when they do this, if you resist, they beat you, they torture you, and they rape you. And we've already discussed that in previous videos. We've already shown, evidence and testimony of this. So it just continues to happen with, very little resistance happening. I mean, you would think America or the UK or Canada or somebody would stand up and fight against this. Now, this next video, I want to find as many people, as possible that can share their testimony of what is happening in Gaza. And this video is rescue workers who are struggling to cope with what they've seen in Gaza. Let's listen as they explain. Many stories follow me in my dreams. The last nightmare I had was about a child with an amputated leg. So this is an ambulance officer, Ibrahim Hussein. I was wondering about his father's feelings and how would the child start his life with an amputation. I think about it a lot because I rescued him and was the first person to help him. So thinking about him is out of my control. Sometimes when I eat, I taste the burning and dismembered bodies of the martyrs in my mouth. Tamer al-Hindi, ambulance officer. I often have nightmares about a child I saved or an old man or a pregnant woman or a paralyzed old woman. There are many situations that haunt me even today, even though they happen to me in the north or south of Gaza, but still today they haunt me in my sleep and in nightmares as if I were still at work. Many continue to relive moments when they had to dig for people they knew. We used to go to places that were targeted and find our friends or relatives. At that moment, I wouldn't know whether to mourn or continue my work. I had to keep going. We went to a targeted location as we usually did. But to my great regret, I found that my family was targeted. I found our house was destroyed. That the windows were broken and blood was all over our house. I thought my family had been killed. Ahmad Al-Hams, ambulance officer, says, I was working in Rafah and was surprised that a bombing happened near my house.
بتفاجأ إنه صار استهداف قريب من بيتنا يعني.
I had to pull the bodies of my neighbors out from under the rubble. Israel blocked deliveries of rescue equipment to Gaza, making digging through the rubble even harder.
تامر مش شايف ولا حاجة أنت؟ ولا حاجة؟
We had to rush with simple tools like a shovel because we don't have the tools to help people. People were losing their lives waiting under the rubble. Israel's attacks killed at least 118 rescue workers over the last 15 months. A lot of times we would be heading towards bombed houses, but Israeli forces wouldn't be sure that all the residents of that house were killed. So as soon as we arrive, Israeli forces fire another strike while we're only meters away. Which they're known to do that, to do a strike and wait for ambulances to arrive, and then do a strike on even the humanitarian aid that is coming. It happened many times. People from my crew got injured. There is no one braver than these people, and the doctors and the various people that are helping, and the journalists that are speaking the truth to power. There's just no one more courageous that can, try to help people and deal with the loss of their own friends and families and neighbors as they're trying to help people and still be able to do the job. I mean, there's no one with that courage in this world. I mean, these people are going through unheard of amounts of trauma that we just can't even relate to at this point. But I encourage you to have some empathy. Next, I want to check out this. There's a movie, a documentary about what is happening in the West Bank. It is called No Other Land. So, No Other Land is a documentary about a Palestinian activist protecting his village from Israeli settlers and has been nominated for an Oscar. No Other Land follows two of the film's directors, Palestinian journalist Bassel Adra and Israeli journalist Yuval Abraham. Over the course of 5 years, the pair documented Israel's destruction of Masafer Yatta, a Palestinian community in the occupied West Bank. No major U.S. distributors have picked up the acclaimed documentary, making it difficult to access outside scattered screenings, the U.S. and Israel's leading supplier of military aid. Brady Corbett, director of The Brutalists, called out the lack of U.S. distribution in a recent acceptance speech. It's time to distribute no other land. And I believe that's true. I want to see it, and I think I know a lot of other people that would like to see it, and I think the world and the United States deserves to see what's going on, and I hope it gets nominated, and I hope it wins that freaking Oscar, and I hope they can rub that shit in everyone's face and show that the injustices that are happening in this world can't be blocked by a bunch of greedy corporate guys that, you know, are signed up with AIPAC and are pro-Zionism and are all for this genocide and don't want any sort of media or art about it to get out. Okay. Hang on. All right, this is on the West Bank. And it's just it's pretty much, I mean, I don't want to say we're being a dead horse, but the worries in the West Bank that what happened to Gaza could also happen there is very much a reality here. So let's take a look at what's going on in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank.
The ink barely had time to dry on the Gaza ceasefire deal before Israel's military launched another attack on Palestinians. But this is the occupied West Bank. Within days,
shooting
Israeli
out the
forces have killed
APC.
a dozen people and wounded many more. It's a coordinated operation. Raids have been happening across the territory, from Jericho to Bethlehem to Ramallah. But the largest is in Jenin. Israeli forces have been on the ground
Bulldozers,
and
raids,
bombed
bombings.
buildings, detained dozens of Palestinians, and as usual, bulldozed roads. But it's not just Israeli forces who have been targeting Jenin.
Settlers
In December, the Palestinian
and the PA.
Authority, which administers part of the West Bank, launched its own operation in the Jenin refugee camp. The crackdown was aimed at rival groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. The UN's refugee agency says the refugee camp has become nearly uninhabitable, with an estimated 2,000 families displaced since then.
Yeah.
We know Israel uses its war on Palestinians as a testing ground for not only weapons but also tactics. And Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said forces are now applying in Jenin the tactic of repeated raids learned from the war in Gaza. They say they're targeting terrorist groups. Oh, and then there are the settlers. The Israeli military set up dozens more checkpoints to stop farmers from reaching their farmlands and to seal civilians into entire cities, such as Hebron and Bethlehem. And that's allowed settlers to try to take over those unattended farms. It's all part of an ongoing
There's the
state-backed
settlers,
strategy
armed,
of illegal settlement expansion.
armed with AR-15s. Look, let's go back.
It's also civilians into entire cities, and that's allowed
Right here. Settlers armed with guns.
to try
Look,
to
right
take
here.
over those unattended farms.
AR-15s right there. Boom.
State-backed strategy of illegal settlement. Palestinians fear it's also about West Bank annexation. One of the first things Donald Trump did when he took
sign
office
off on
was
it.
cancel Biden-era sanctions on far-right Israeli settler groups and individuals accused of violence against Palestinians. We don't know if any promises were made to Israeli officials in return for backing the Gaza ceasefire. There's also Trump's UN envoy, Elise Stefanik.
I did ask you whether you subscribe to the views of Finance Minister Smotrich.
Of who? I'm sorry,
Smotrich. This is the Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich.
We already
and
saw
the former
this,
National
but,
Security Minister
it's
Ben-Gvir, who believe that Israel has a biblical right to the entire West Bank. Is that your view today?
Yes.
Okay.
Israel's Finance Minister, Bezalel Smotrich, has warned Israel is preparing for another war, but in his own words, this time in the West Bank until complete victory. Smotrich is also in charge of the settlement project and has announced Israel will annex the West Bank this year. That is about 94% of the territory meant for a future Palestinian state.
That's horrific. All right, so moving on to some, I guess, seemingly more lighthearted news is we have here on Blue Sky, Mehdi Hassan has a surprise for us. So here on Blue Sky, Mehdi Hassan has said, surprise! And he's reposted, Republican Representative Andy Ogles has drafted a constitutional amendment aimed at allowing Donald Trump to be president for a third term. So Ogles, a representative of Tennessee, has proposed amending the 22nd Amendment to allow Trump to serve a third term. So he really loves Donald Trump so much that he is proposing that no person shall be elected to office of the president more than 3 times. And so he has the resolution and he has, all the stuff here. And so immediately in the comments, someone says, Obama, 2028. So it's like, so some people are, just arguing back and forth about it. But I think you have to respond to it with humor because it is just a meme. It is just so far beyond the pale of ridiculosity that it's just completely unreasonable. And this is one of the things about fascism that just needs to be smacked down. I mean, people have to stand up for this, whether it's our government officials, whether it is the people marching in the streets. Make your voice known. Share these tweets, share, this news content from this channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it is so important that you do, because this news has to get out there. You have to share this with other people and make sure that people are informed and that, crazy, stupid resolutions like this, which are unlikely to get passed, but are probably a ploy for this guy, to be welcomed into Trump's inner circle. He's trying to build up and become a billionaire himself. That's the move here. And we have to recognize it, and we have to call it out, and we have to stop this nonsense. And it's just ridiculous. Now let's check in with Senator Bernie Sanders because he has some words for Donald Trump. He attended Trump's inauguration yesterday, and so Bernie has some thoughts about Trump's inauguration. So let's see what Bernie has to say about Trump's inauguration.
I was at the Trump inauguration yesterday, and
he was grumpy.
I disagreed with much of what he had to say. But what really struck me, however, is not what he said, which was not surprising given his rhetoric, but what he didn't say. The simple truth is that Donald Trump gave a major speech, the first speech of his second presidency, and ignored virtually every important issue facing the working families of this country. How crazy is that? Our healthcare system is broken, is dysfunctional, and it's wildly expensive. Not one word from Trump about how he is going to address the healthcare crisis. We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, sometimes 10 times more than the people in other countries. And 1 out of 4 Americans are unable to afford the prescriptions that their doctors prescribe. Not one word in his speech on the high cost of prescription drugs. We have 800,000 Americans who are homeless, and millions of people spending 50 or 60% of their limited income on housing. We have a major housing crisis in America. Everybody knows it. And Trump, in his inaugural address, did not devote one word to it. Today in America, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had. The wealthiest 3 people in America now own more wealth than the bottom half of our society. But Trump had nothing to say, not one word, about the growing gap between the very rich and everybody else. And maybe, just maybe, that's because he had those 3 people, the 3 wealthiest people in our country, sitting right behind them at his inauguration. And I should add that those 3 people, if you can believe it, and this really is unbelievable, saw their wealth increase by more than $233 billion since the November elections. How's that? $233 billion increase in wealth for the 3 wealthiest people. No wonder they were sitting right behind Donald Trump at his inauguration. They couldn't be happier.
Oligarchs.
During his inaugural speech, Trump did not have one word to say about how we're going to address the planetary crisis of climate change. The last 10 years have been the warmest years ever recorded, and extreme weather disturbances and natural disasters are taking place all over the world, from Los Angeles to India, across Europe to North Carolina. Not one word from Trump about climate change, except, of course, to make it clear that he intends to make this horrific situation even worse with drill, baby, drill. Just brilliant.
Yikes.
In the coming months and years, our job is not just to respond to every absurd statement that Donald Trump makes.
Mm-hmm.
Our job is to stay focused on the issues that are of importance to the working families of our country, and in fact are widely supported by the American people. Let me just mention a few of them. Yes, healthcare is a human right, and we must join every other major country in guaranteeing healthcare to all people through a Medicare for All single-payer program. Healthcare is a human right. Yes, we must take on the greed of Big Pharma and substantially lower the cost of prescription drugs in this country. Yes, we must build millions of units of affordable housing and low-income housing. Yes, we must make sure that all of our young people have the ability to get a higher education by making public colleges and universities tuition-free. Yes, we must work with the global community to combat climate change by cutting carbon emissions and transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel and into sustainable energy. Yes, we must pass legislation to raise the absurdly low federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour to a living wage of $17 an hour. Anybody who works 40 hours a week in this country should not be living in poverty. Yes, we must pass the PRO Act and make it easier for workers to join trade unions and grow the trade union movement in America. Yes, in order to help fund the needs of working families in this country, we must demand that the wealthiest people in this country, including those individuals sitting right beside Donald Trump at his inaugural, start paying their fair share of taxes. Yes, we must end a corrupt campaign finance system which allows a handful of billionaires to buy elections and move us rapidly into an oligarchic form of society. Bottom line, As we enter the new Trump presidency, we have got to remain focused. We cannot panic. No matter how many executive orders he signs, and no matter how many absurd statements he makes, our goal remains the same. We have got to educate, we have got to organize, we've got to put pressure on Congress to do the right things. And by the way, with Republicans only holding a 3 or 4 seat advantage in the House, we can stop them time and time again if we are organized. Finally, my friends, we have got to fight to create an America based on economic, social, racial, and environmental justice. That's what we've got to work on. Let's go forward. Let's do it. Thank you.
Man, absolutely. I mean, he gets so deep into every single thing that we have to focus on, and it just builds up on what we read about how to rebel against fascism, how to keep American democracy alive throughout another Trump term. And I think also Trump getting rid of the $35 for insulin, and now the big pharma can just charge whatever they want for insulin. That's going to really hurt people. And it's just insane that people just don't see the harm in that. They'll be like, oh, well, that was too low of a cost for all the big pharma. Like, if only we give them a chance to set their own prices, they'll do the right thing, and we'll get more jobs, and they'll share their profits with us, the regular Joe, and then we can become billionaires too. That's not how it works. Not how it works, Chief. Representative Mike Collins. Oh man, this is a good one. So I have 2 things here. And this is a big one.
The culture of contempt that
Hang on, let me pause. All right. So first, okay, here we go. Mike Collins, representative, speaks out against Bishop Buddy and demands that she be added to the mass deportation list. Okay, so here, Mike Collins says that the person giving this sermon, Bishop Buddy, should be added to the deportation list. What I want to do is actually focus in on, well, what did she say? What did she say that has Republicans and Trump so pissed off? Let's listen to her sermon right here.
The culture of contempt that has become normalized in this country threatens to destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
We are all bombarded daily with
And
messages from what
notice, like,
sociology-
already, they don't like where this is heading. Like, every single one of Trump, his kids are sitting behind him, and Vance and his wife are here, and Melania and Trump are here. They're already rubbing their eyes and, like, looking down and reading the program and just kind of pretending, and then you're going to see them start doing, like, the eye rolls, and Trump looks at his spouse, and J.D. Vance looks at his spouse, kind of like, are you hearing this shit? Can you believe she's saying this to us?
all bombarded daily with
Wait for
messages from what sociologists now call the outrage industrial complex. Some of that driven by
He looks
external
over at
forces
Vance.
whose interests are furthered by a polarized America. Contempt fuels political campaigns and social
Marianne
media, and
everybody.
many
She has more courage
profit
than
from that.
anyone. More courage than
But it's
any
a worrisome-
Democrats, that's for sure.
It's a dangerous way to lead a country.
Mm.
I'm a person of faith, surrounded by people of faith. And with God's help, I believe that unity in this country is possible. Not perfectly, for we are imperfect people and an imperfect union, but sufficient enough to keep us all believing in and working to realize the ideals of the United States of America, ideals expressed in the Declaration of Independence with its assertion of innate human equality and dignity. And we are right to pray for God's help.
They're not paying attention anymore.
Unity, for we need God's help. But only if we ourselves are willing to tend to the foundations upon which unity depends. Like Jesus' analogy of building a house of faith on the rock of his teachings as opposed to building a house on sand, the foundations we need for unity must be sturdy enough to withstand the many storms that threaten it. And so what are they? The foundations of unity? Drawing from our sacred traditions and text, let me suggest that there are at least three. The first foundation for unity is honoring the inherent dignity of every human being, which is, as all the faiths represented here affirm, the birthright of all people as children of our one God. In public discourse, honoring each other's dignity means refusing to mock or discount or demonize those with whom we differ.
Ooh.
Choosing instead to respectfully debate our differences, and whenever possible to seek common ground. And if common ground
ain't
is not
interested in
possible,
common
dignity
ground.
demands that we remain true to our convictions without contempt for those who hold
And J.D. Vance, he already did a glance away. Let's see it. Yeah, right there.
Demands that
Watch the glance
we
away.
remain true to our convictions without contempt for those who hold convictions
Just
of their
insane.
own. Second foundation for unity is honesty.
Honesty.
In both private conversation and public discourse.
Oh, so no locker room talk? No grabbing her by the...
If we're not willing to be honest, there's no use in praying for unity.
Mm-hmm.
Because our actions work against the prayers themselves.
Yeah.
We might, for a time...
Look at Joe! Look, okay, so as soon as the camera pans back to him, look at this. He's like staring off into the aisle like just... I mean, he couldn't be more in La La Land at this point.
We might, for a time, experience a false sense of unity among some, but not the sturdier,
They look
broader
so
unity
uncomfortable.
that we need to address the challenges that we face.
And he just has a constant, J.D. Vance just has like a constant wrinkle on his forehead. Like he's just like, I can't believe this woman is telling us how to govern this country, telling us to respect God's way of love and charity and unity and honesty, that we should live as Christians.
Now, to be fair, we don't always know where the truth lies. And there's a lot working against the truth now. But when we do know, when we know what is true, it's incumbent upon us to speak the truth, even when, especially when, it costs us.
Mm-hmm.
And the third and last foundation I'll mention today is foundation for unity is humility, which we all need.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are all fallible human beings. We make
Dude,
mistakes.
Trump he's gone, dude. He's so gone. Look at this. We all need humility.
Because we are all fallible.
We're all
human
fallible. Trump doesn't like that. He's already looking off in La La Land, and J.D. Vance is doing like the one eyebrow lift, and he just has like a look of content in his eyes. And then the Trumps behind them, the kids are just staring off into nowhere.
beings. We make mistakes. We say and do Things that we later regret.
And Melania just cracked a smile right there. Look, Melania just cracked a smile. Let's go back.
Human beings.
Listen to what words made her smile. We make mistakes. Now listen.
We make mistakes. We say and do things that we later regret.
And he whispered something in her ear. We say and do things that we later regret.
We have our blind spots and our biases and...
Now J.D. Vance scratching his nose.
And perhaps we are most dangerous.
Which is natural, you know. We could write that off. We could say, okay, he's not being, you know, contentful and kind of an asshole and just being, you know, not receiving the words that are coming.
Ourselves and others when we are persuaded without a doubt that we are absolutely right and someone else is absolutely wrong. Because then we are just a few steps from labeling ourselves as the good people versus the bad people. And the truth is that we're all people. We're both capable of good and bad. Alexander Solzhenitsyn once astutely observed that the line separating good and evil passes not through states, not between classes, nor between political parties, but right through every human heart, through all human hearts. And the more we realize this, the more room we have within ourselves for humility.
Look, he's whispering in his wife's ear. They're just totally like, listen to this bullshit. I can't believe she's telling us to have humility and to be kind to others and do as Jesus did. Yeah, that's so freaking annoying.
And the more we realize this,
talking about
the more
good
room
and
we
evil
have within ourselves.
So yeah, Trump's staring off into nowhere. J.D. Vance is talking to his wife.
For humility.
The kids are just
to one another
totally
across
distracted
our differences,
at this
because
point.
in fact we are more like.
And she's just nodding with kind of a blank look on her face. You know, she's the only one that's actually like, listen, we're on camera the whole time. I'm just going to look straight ahead and behave. Everyone else is like totally not with the program here.
One another than we realize. And we need each other. Unity is relatively easy to pray for on occasions of great solemnity. It's a lot harder to realize when we're dealing with real differences in our private lives and in the public arena. But without unity, we're building our nation's house on sand. And with a commitment to unity that incorporates diversity and transcends
They're just looking at the
disagreement,
program,
and with
talking.
the solid foundations of dignity,
It's not at all
honesty,
present.
and humility that such unity requires, we can do our part and in our time to realize the ideals and the dream of America. Let me make one final plea, Mr. President.
Ooh.
Millions have put their trust in you.
Mm-hmm.
And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic.
He looked away. Look, he glanced over at his wife, just totally incontent. JD is just not with the program of like, we should behave and just listen to her words and be stone-faced and not react and not show any weakness or any sort of defiance here. But that's really the moment where we're analyzing, you know, the look on his face, the raised eyebrows, the contentful look in the eyes, and then just that glance at the wife of like, can you believe what this, you know, this freaking asshole up on the pedestal is trying to tell us how to govern? You know, these guys that pray for church and state to be united and how much they love just making sure that there is no separation oh, now they actually want some separation of church and state. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to listen to God's law.
Gay, lesbian, and transgender children in
as soon as she mentions
democratic,
gays, he glances away, turns his head at the wife.
Independent families.
He doesn't react at all, so he comes back.
Who fear for their lives. And the people who...
And see, she's losing the people in the back, too. All Trump's kids, they're all glancing and whispering at each other.
Pick our crops.
They don't want to hear this.
And clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals. They may not be citizens or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities.
And now JD has a furrowed brow now. So now it's a little bit of an angry face. And he looks down at his program. We'll just go back a little bit so you can see the brow.
I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those
right there.
in our...
Look, watch the brow. The eyebrows start to wrinkle. You start to see that little pinch right here on the bridge of the nose, right? You see those little lines right there when your eyebrows get angry? That's what's going on. So he looks down and he's angry.
Whose children fear that
he wears his emotions very proudly. You know, Trump is not paying attention and looking around, but at least he's trying to keep kind of somewhat the same look on his face.
And that you help those who
maybe
are
it's the
fleeing war
Botox,
zones
I
and
don't know.
persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger. For we were all once strangers in this land.
What she's saying is that everybody was an immigrant at one point. If you're not a Native American, and you know who those people are, so don't pretend, you are an immigrant. Trump's family, immigrants. J.D. Vance's family, immigrants. His wife, immigrant. Me, immigrant. We all have our stories of how, we fled persecution or searched for a land of freedom, a land of opportunity, how our families came here and built something and achieved the American dream. And these are the people that want to shut the door behind them and make sure no other people can come in the country and achieve the American dream that built this country.
May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world.
What did you think of
What did you think of the service?
Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it?
Not too
I don't
exciting.
think it was a good service, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They could do much better.
They could do much better. Yeah. He called her a biased leftist, I know, in some of his, I guess what you call him, a Troth, because he owns Troth Central. Ashley, if you're there, if you have anything you want to comment on that, on Bishop Buddy. Might have lost our commentator. Hello?
Hey. Hello. I thought it was quite brave to sit there and say all of that in front of him and everyone. Especially with them making all those smug faces back at her. She used her platform for a good reason. Not for really any super political gain, but to ask for empathy and kindness and compassion for other people. What a wild concept.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is very brave, and I mean, she didn't really, like you said, she didn't really have a political agenda or any sort of benefit for her. And that's what, no matter what it is, she's Episcopalian, but I mean, no matter what Christian denomination it is. I mean, Jesus's teachings, if they're mirrored properly through the lens of these, you know, pastors, priests, ministers, and all that, you know, that those teachings are universal. I mean, it's the message of, you know, heal the sick, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, you know, and to you know, to support immigrants and to you know, provide for your fellow man, and it's just general kindness. It's not socialism. Doesn't mean we have to be a bunch of commies or anything. Although I would say Jesus is would be very disappointing to the conservatives, because Jesus would be he wouldn't be a member of a political party, but you would find that his policies would be very, you know, he was very anti-government and very anti-taxation, and he believed in treating people fairly and kindly and with mercy. And that's all she's really asking, is for some mercy, some understanding, some unity in a country that is so divided and so dangerous right now, for everybody to just kind of take a step back and try to work with each other and try to compromise on things, instead of just, you know, being one party in power that just rams everything through, you know? So thank you for your for providing your thoughts there. Next, the Trump administration. Oh my God. The Trump administration calls for a cease in communications to the United States from the CDC, the FDA, and other government health employees one day of pulling out of the WHO, which is the World Health Organization.
The Trump administration has told federal health.
So let's, this is a quick 20-minute video here, or sorry, 20-second video here. I can't even process time at this point. But this is a quick video here. Let's take a look.
The Trump administration has told federal health agencies to pause external communications. That includes scientific reports and health advisories. The CDC, FDA, and the NIH are all impacted by the president's order. These agencies routinely release information on food recalls, drug approvals, and public health threats.
So no information about if there's an E. coli outbreak, if there's another COVID comes out, or there's, you know, a salmonella outbreak or anything like that. The same thing Trump did when he first got in office. He pulled out of the WHO back in 2016. He pulled out of, he shut down the, it was the Board of Health Advisory that is part of the president's, you know, committee, and sort of provides him with awareness of the situation. And so by getting rid of those things, the reactions and the alarm bells of what was happening with COVID didn't go off. And so because he got rid of that funding and those people, we weren't ready for COVID. And it was like dominoes, man. Like they all fell into place, man. They all just fell down one after the other. And that's just one of his absolutely scary things. Johnson, discouraged by oh man, this one's crazy. All right, let's bring it up. So we have the Washington Post article, which I believe is, it is paywalled. But the Washington Post reports Johnson aide discouraged Hutchinson subpoena over concerns about lawmakers' sexual texts. Now, what does this mean? Well, former Trump aide Cassidy Hutchinson was apparently sent explicit harassing texts, you know, of the sexual nature by lawmakers, and Johnson, the Speaker of the House, was discouraging her and others from letting this information get out. So let's listen to a man from Midas Touch sort of recap the situation for us all. So let me do that here.
Friends, we got a bombshell story just in from the Washington Post about the Republican efforts to rewrite the history of January 6th, and this may be one of the most MAGA stories you will ever hear. So if you remember, last year, Republicans wanted to harass Cassidy Hutchinson, that's the former White House aide who spoke out as a witness during the January 6th committee hearings. Well, it turns out they ran into a bit of an issue when they wanted to subpoena Hutchinson. So when Republican Speaker Mike Johnson actually wanted to subpoena Cassidy Hutchinson, all the Republicans kind of rushed to him and said, no, you can't do that. Why? Because apparently a lot of these Republicans sent sexually explicit messages to Cassidy Hutchinson that they didn't want to become public. Here's from the Washington Post, quote, before that meeting, a Johnson aide told Loudermilk staff, that's a Republican congressman, that multiple colleagues had raised concerns with the Speaker's office about the potential for public disclosure of, quote, sexual texts from members who were trying to engage in sexual favors with Hutchinson, according to correspondence
Sexual favors.
Time that detailed the conversation. Separately, a member of Johnson's staff told Loudermilk aides that Hutchinson could, quote, potentially reveal embarrassing information, according to an email reviewed by the Post. Folks, there is truly no bottom to the depravity of this Republican Party. But you know what? We are going to follow it every single day. We are going to report on the news. We are going to hold them accountable. So make sure that you're following us for more.
Hell yeah. And that's from Midas Touch. I would like to add that information needs to get out, whether it's leaked or whether it's revealed in some sort of congressional hearing for the public to see and hear. I think we need to know everything that our Republican congressmen, senators, hell, even if there's Democrats saying crazy stuff, everyone needs to be held accountable for their actions. And I think if you're, sending dirty texts and sexual favors to women, especially in Trump's orbit, we need to know about it. Next,
it was an insurrection.
As we know here, Donald Trump has pardoned a lot of the January 6th rioters with unconditional pardons, even the ones who have beaten, attacked, and even the police officer who was killed on January 6th. This has upset a lot of police all over the country that Donald Trump has pardoned these criminals, traitors, and insurrectionists. But one of the January 6th rioters has refused Trump's pardon because she recognizes that what she did was wrong and she must pay the consequences, pay the price. So let's hear what she has to say.
It was an insurrection, and I don't want to be a part of helping them rewrite history. I was guilty. I pleaded guilty. I was guilty.
So you are happy for your conviction to stand?
He was guilty.
Absolutely.
What was it that made you take part in the Capitol riot in the first place? What drove you to do it?
You don't realize it at the time. I know now that MAGA is a cult and that Trump is a dangerous narcissist that put out...
So she realized it was a cult, and now Trump is a dangerous narcissist. She sees everything for what it is.
The big lie that the election was stolen. But when you're in the MAGA cult, they gaslight you so much and tell you not to listen to anybody but Trump. And you go along with them. You don't do your own research. You lose your critical thinking and you just start listening to all the lies. But later when as I found out, all of this has been nothing but propaganda and lies, and that Trump truly is a dangerous narcissist. He's now a felon, a criminal. So it's not surprising that he's bringing his other criminals to help him implement whatever he's planning on doing.
Do you think it is dangerous to issue these pardons? Certainly
yes.
For those guilty of violent crimes. Do you think it could lead to more trouble?
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. It's like, and end the clip there. Absolutely. It's absolutely insane, but at least somebody has some sort of moral compass here. This is really interesting, man. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which Donald Trump has created, the top attorney, Bill McGinley, has resigned days after Vivek Ramaswamy also stepped away from DOGE. So DOGE, being the Department of Government Efficiency, and of course we heard recently that Vivek Ramaswamy stepped down. I think we accidentally got two of the same thing here. The top attorney, Bill McGinley, has stepped down, and we have a link here to the Wall Street Journal article there, DOGE's top lawyer to depart, and he would be the counsel leading DOGE, and he said he's going to return to the private sector. I believe both he and Vivek have said that they are stepping down due to disagreements with Elon on how to run things. So basically, creative differences. Let's see. Oh, this kind of lends into what I talked to you all at the top of the show. We looked at Elon Musk's Nazi salute, and we also looked at Zuckerberg eyeing Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos' fiance. We have some video as well, because what would it be without having video evidence of all these peeping toms, just these billionaire oligarchs being weird and creepy in general. So let's pull it up here. So these are the creeps eyeing Jeff Bezos' fiance.
Lauren Sanchez has been.
So look, you can see Zuckerberg.
Slammed.
He looks down, and so is the other guy. This other guy here is like peeping too, but he's looking down because obviously she's wearing a white pantsuit with a white lace bra underneath, and I guess the way the suit's buttoned, you're able to see a little bit there. And Zuckerberg is also sitting next to his girlfriend, but she's on the other side, and I guess she missed that part. And then he smiles, dude. Like literally, caught in 4K, man. Like let's go back. Like he's looking down, then he looks up and smiles. Like that's insane, bro. He's like,
choice of
I like
outfit
the
at Donald Trump's
merchandise.
Inauguration. The journalist, 55, initially looked weak as she arrived to see Trump sworn in as the 47th U.S. president in Washington, D.C. However, the fiancé of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos shocked the public after taking off her coat to show a white pantsuit, with her white lace bra on full display under its matching jacket.
That's crazy, man. Okay, the next one is her taking off the coat, but look, she turns around, watch RFK. I mean, there's also this guy whose eyes just went really large, but watch RFK. Look, his eyes just shut. And now he's looking down, dude. It couldn't be more obvious, man. Like, and his head tilts downward too. Like, watch. Looks down, head tilts down. Look again. He looks down, head tilts down. It couldn't be more obvious what the object of focus is. It's just absolutely insane, guys. Come on. How crazy. All the oligarchs in a row, all the morons and all the billionaires. The people that decide where this country will go over the next 4 years and even into, generations of laws that will affect us for many, many years and will take a lot of time to repeal or fix or, issue presidential orders against those various things and policies. I mean, the damage it does, it's immense. Look what has happened to the Supreme Court and how it's, so heavily stacked Republican, where it is just so incredibly biased.
Lauren Sanchez has been slammed.
I gotta close these videos. All right, that's enough on that. let me see. I think I had a few extra things I wanted to add to the show here, just to kind of wrap things up in a nice little bow here. Actually, I think we'll save that for another video, because it looks like I got like 5 or 10 different sources here, and we're running a little long tonight. But I want to thank you all for being here. Definitely hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and don't forget to share these videos with your friends and with your family and with other people, so that you can expose them to different points of view, or even just find people that agree with you and can inform you and have a discussion with you and be willing to have these difficult conversations that are going to lead to actual solutions. There used to be a time where we could sit down and compromise, and where we could hash things out, and eventually, you know, maybe you agree to disagree, but you realize that you have common goals that you want to achieve. And that's what I think we need to strive to get back to. So once again, I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank Ashley for chiming in and being on the crew here and doing some hefty moderation in the comments. So with that, I want to thank you all for being here. Take care, be safe, and we will see you all on the next one. Take care.